A very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTBAM. It's a short week this week for all of you recovering from your St. Patrick's Day hangovers. If you want to get in touch with us, leave a comment in the stream. And if you want to just turn this into your sports breakfast radio every morning, head over to offtheball.com and hit the listen live button. We are this morning gripped with spy fever. There is a book out called Client Confidential. There it is, a copy of it for those of you watching us this morning. Sean Hartnett is the author, and it's published by Merriam Press. And apparently this guy wrote a book before, which was about, he's an ex-spy, a spook up the north, working for the British Secret Security Services. And he wrote a book before that. This is the follow-up. Charlie 1 was the first book. The book that the British Ministry of Defence tried to ban. But it turns out after he left the British Army, he came back home to Ireland and has loads of stories about Anglo-Irish Bank, and some other people who would have been working here, stories about the Corrib pipeline. He spied on lots of people. Also has a story about working for the IRFU, the Irish Rugby Football Union. Around about 2007, 2008, there was, he claims, intense paranoia about leaks. There was a meeting where the top brass of the IRFU were meeting to discuss what would happen with the end of Eddie O'Sullivan and the start of Declan Kidney. And apparently everything appeared in the papers word for word almost, which Sean Hartnett in his book claims led the IRFU to go, what the hell's happening here? Is somebody listening to us? Is somebody in the room telling everybody? How is this making the papers? You know, could just be good old-fashioned journalism. That it could just been somebody, you know, with enough contacts saying, oh, I heard this, oh, I heard this. You know, the way NFL insiders work now, where that's how stories get out. That could have just been old-fashioned journalism, but, you know. And so he's written an entire chapter where he claims that he was engaged by the IRFU to analyse the quality of the work that was being done by the other company that was engaged by the IRFU to sweep for bugs and stuff. So there was big paranoia in World Rugby generally that conversations were being listened to. I don't know if you remember this, right? But there was like a massive conspiracy, one of the first proper sports internet conspiracy theories about the Lions tour of the World Cup, about how England had these magic water bottles that Martin Johnson would push and speak into and get instructions from Clive Woodward. I don't know if you remember this, but there was footage that was doing the rounds of Martin Johnson pushing the water bottle and then speaking into the water bottle as the water went into his mouth. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he speaking into the water bottle? And then the camera would cut to the crowd, and Clive Woodward would also at the same time be simultaneously speaking. So, look, you know, it looked a little bit weird, right? I'm not going to lie, it looked a little bit weird. So rugby, high-end, spying and cricket and all that kind of stuff was a thing. So apparently the IRFU engaged a security company, and they were down in the Ballsbridge Hotel, or one of the hotels in Ballsbridge. I don't want to get the wrong one. And the guy went in with his device to beep, 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 and left after half an hour and went, oh, that's fine. And our guy, Sean Hartnett, the hero, is like looking at this because he's the consultant engaged to see if that crowd is any good. He's like, we call these guys the magician. They come in with their magic wands and leave, and it's completely nonsense. He didn't unscrew any of the power sockets. That guy was a spoofer. I was able to go in and say, well, you know, I worked for the British government in Northern Ireland, so therefore I'm like high-end, top-quality, grade A, primo spy shit here. I know what I'm doing. And he was able to win a massive contract from the IRFU for a full review of their security services. He also managed to break into the IRFU's offices just to prove how easy it was for somebody to break into it, wander around unmolested by any of the staff who were working there, you know, gathering information like Paul O'Connell's salary, although he doesn't publish it. And so it's very exciting. This is like, you know, the IRFU obviously say this is not true. They start in the statement that they've given to the Irish Independent this morning. It is apparent the author of Client Confidential has fictionalised many elements in the account of the IRFU's engagement with RMI or Risk Management International, and has exercised extreme degrees of artistic licence in his portrayal of the processes undertaken. That means he definitely worked for you at some point. He was involved in this. It's like a bit of exaggeration. For the record, the IRFU has never retained the services of or worked with a Sean Hartnett. Sean Hartnett is obviously the guy's pseudonym It's a made-up name. That's not his real name, because he's a British spy who would be killed if he was to reveal his identity. At least that's what he thinks. Maybe Sean Hartnett's his real name and it's a double bluff, but the RFU never worked with Sean Hartnett, so therefore there's no truth to this story whatsoever.
It's the worst pseudonym in history, Sean Hartnett. If you're going to pick a fake name, if you're involved with espionage, pick something more exotic than Sean Hartnett, but I guess it kind of leaves things more down to a realistic level. Apparently he's from Cork.
You're hiding in plain sight. That's what you're doing there. It's Kaiser Sose.
Yeah, like I think it's fairly track downable. Or more track downable.
You can't give yourself Kaiser Sose name. Like, that's like, you know.
Like, I would have gone for something more Latin-based or something like that. Just if you're going to pick a fake name, do it right. Sean Hartnett doesn't really do it for me. It's an extraordinary story, and I'm sure there's elements of it that are hammed up, but the RFU, of course, stating that all of it is hammed up and that large elements of it are completely untrue. Now, I do kind of feel for the previous crowd who'd gone in and tried to sweep that hotel room, because ultimately it was a conversation just recorded on a phone.
Yeah, he does say that, so he goes in and watches a few team meetings, and at the end of it, he gets really important information like the tactics that they're involved in and their drinking plans for that evening. Like, it is definitely, it has the bang of spoof of it, and yet at the same time there's a grain of truth, so that's the perfect story.
So it all kind of comes about after the predicted sacking of Eddie O'Sullivan in 2007, and this is the big leak, and that Declan Kidney was waiting in the wings to actually come in, and Sean Hartnett takes it upon himself to actually kind of have a word with Declan Kidney when he gets the job, to say that not all his enemies were outside the walls of IRFU HQ, which is rather cryptic.
Well, that's interesting, because then that means Declan Kidney can verify that conversation happened.
Yeah, well, it's true. Like, but imagine being Declan Kidney in the corridors of power in the RFU, and just this mysterious man comes up to you and says, "Not all your enemies are outside these walls." You're like, "Who the hell are you?" In
a weird Cork Nordy hybrid accent.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Sean.
It kind of seems like a bad Hardy Buck sketch or something like that, or an excellent one, really. And I do hope that it is all true, but unfortunately the RFU is saying it's fictionalised. This is the story we need right now. Also coming days after Joe Schmidt has said and has voiced his unhappiness with Ireland teams being leaked early. I wonder, will Sean Hartnett be called upon to speak to certain journalists across the Irish print media to stop Oran Catlin getting that real advantage next time? Yeah,
so he ends up concluding that the room hadn't been bugged after all that. There's a great bit where it's like, he talks about there was a bugging in 2015 or 2017 in remember the All Blacks found what was reported to be a listening device in Australia. Ultimately, the person who finds that was working for the company that the All Blacks had hired to protect them, and then he ends up getting found not guilty of any charges. So ultimately, no one knows what happened, but the security company whose job it was to find the bugging found the bugging thing, and so he's like making the point that, you know, it's really important when you're in security that you occasionally scare your customers into being repeat customers. So he's kind of like, I didn't find any bugging device in the Shelburne that time.
My theory in all of this is that Sean Hartnett may be a double agent, working on behalf of the RFU and the IRFU. So if the IRFU are, you know, hoping that their inside agent isn't working on behalf of the RFU, then perhaps, you know, British military agent is a bit of a giveaway, is it not? Then again, he could be representing Wales or Scotland as well. But maybe that's the case here. Maybe the real reason why our Six Nations was so poor this year was actually just a double bluff by Sean Hartnett, and he's actually just been feeding information the other way. He's gone to some length to really justify his credentials, and really the IRFU should have seen it coming when they had this guy Sean Hartnett showing up and asking for a martini shaken, not stirred.
They call it the long con. That's the ultra long con in this instance.
Well, if you're going to write two books based on it, then it's a double bluff, it's a triple bluff, it's a quadruple bluff at this point. So I like his dedication, but personally, if I'm in the IRFU and if I'm sitting down with Sean Hartnett this morning, I'm like, can I fully trust you? Because I'm sure he's done great work so far.
You're talking with Dr. Brian Moore a little bit later on this morning, the founder and CEO of Orreco, which is the Irish sports science company that's making waves across the world of sport. The Dallas Mavericks have credited them with a massive amount of extra playing hours that their players have been available for in the NBA this year. Here is Brian Moore talking about working with Sonia O'Sullivan earlier in her career.
It was such an honour to work with Sonia. I was completing my, I was kind of starting my PhD under Professor Craig Sharp in Brunel in London, and we had just a simple idea: was could we use advanced blood testing to kind of pick up iron deficiencies, maybe 10 weeks to 12 weeks before they actually manifest itself, which is a big deal for an endurance runner. And I suppose it's funny when I look back now. I still get goosebumps when I think of Sonia in Homebush racing down the home stretch and trying to chase down Zabo. But really, I suppose Sonia was so far ahead of her time. There's often elements that we delivered and did with her back in the day, and her coach Alan Story, that maybe that athletes still haven't caught up with. She was so far ahead of the game.
What sort of things are we talking about?
Really, it was we got an understanding of how the numbers were shifting across her training phases, picking up early signs of an iron deficiency, like I said, using the retic values, and also interpreting those numbers in the context of her training. So, for example, we weren't necessarily looking at normal reference ranges, which would be like comparing your a blood test result to the general public or someone sitting in the stands. We were working out her individual range and seeing how the numbers changed as she went through the different phases of the year. And we did manage to pick up, early signs of when she was fatigued, and then use that. It was very early. We were still trying to figure this out. But could we pick up signs in the blood test that maybe she needed a bit more rest or was pushing too hard? And Sonia's MO was always to push hard, so it was using the numbers to help her to optimise her performance.
We'll bring that full conversation a little bit later on, but that's an Irish company tearing up trees in the world of sports science. So here's what's coming up for you on the show today. The sports news from Darren around about 8:35, working backwards. Going to talk about the Irish football situation at 8:25. The Dubs were beaten at the weekend. It was, is it the first little crack of light that the rest of the country has, that Tyrone come to Croke Park and aren't quailed? It's not the first time that they've done this, though, in the league. So what exactly does it mean? We'll bring you to the sports pages now. And then the second half of the show, a little bit later on, around about 8:45, we'll bring you the Tight Five with Neil Treacy, Orreco Explained at 9:05, and Irish Rugby leaks at 9:20. I mean, this is just a fun story, right? It's not actually that big a deal.
No.
The RFU have issued a statement saying that it's fictionalised artistic license, but they're entitled to protect their security. It's totally fine. You would expect, if they did think that there were leaks happening, that they would have somebody in to go, is there anything we need to know here? I didn't know this. It's a bit from the book about Man United in 2005 have an entire pre-match, half-time and full-time game against Chelsea recorded. 7 hours of recording are taken, and then that is made available to whoever wants to buy it. So an investigation happens and it never finds out who's doing it. So when you think about it, the newspapers at the time, when you think about the stuff that the English newspapers, when they were hacking people's phones, would they think twice about buying something from a third-party security firm who's like, oh, we can hack anything you want, or we can record anything you want? No, they wouldn't. So, was there enough money in this for somebody to try and record the information and sell it to a tabloid paper? There probably was. So are they within the rights to protect them? I think probably are. You would kind of expect them to be doing some of that, no?
Well, yeah, even if this whole thing is entirely true, you can't really blame them too much either, can you?
The RFU?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
If I'm in their position, A, you want to protect yourself, and B, you get to feel like you're in a spy movie. You get to hire double agents who may or may not be working for the IRFU. If you're an extremely paranoid person, then this is just a beautiful story for you. So I really hope that somebody in the IRFU is uber paranoid and is getting a great kick out of the story. But of course, I really hope that the whole thing is true for that to be the case. But unfortunately, that may not be the situation.
Keogh's motto: if it is broke, don't fix it. Derby defender puts off having surgery on broken hand in order to be available. This is the headline in the front of the Irish Times this morning. Is a picture of Richard Keogh with his strapped hand. Harry Arthur feeling his groin, and Dave McGoldrick there as well at the National Training Centre yesterday. Kavanagh gets called as Power is ruled out. This is the under-21s. There's a lot more. I think there's a lot more interest in the under-21s because Stephen Kenny's managing it.
Huge.
I'll be genuinely interested. And Brandon Kavanagh has replaced Simon Power in the Irish under-21 squad to play Luxembourg on Sunday. And we were playing Luxembourg. in an under-21 game, and people are like, oh, I wonder what's the style of play going to be.
It's getting huge prominence across the newspapers this morning, actually, which you rarely see from an under-21 setup.
Yeah. Zlatan and Ryan Giggs are going at it. Oh, there's what could have been. Picture of Declan Rice in his first call-up to the England squad. Getting on very well. Settling in like, comfortable fitting glove. Like he's home.
Did you see his interview with the FA yesterday?
I watched about 10 seconds and went, I'm not going to watch this. I don't need to see this.
The standout line was, as you can hear, I am English.
Did he say that?
He said that line. I wonder what a certain colleague of ours thinks of that.
Josh Cullen, who is also a West Ham player, is in the Ireland squad. He's 22. Did ask people not to listen to his accent, but to... Where's the line gone? Oh, it's in one of the tabloids. They cut to the heart of it. Kane says club rivalry is not going to disrupt England. We'll see. And then this story, obviously, which is all over the papers today. Sport Ireland seeks explanation over Delaney loan to FAI. So last night, Sport Ireland issued a fairly succinct statement. Sport Ireland has written to the President of the Football Association of Ireland seeking urgent clarification from the board of the FAI on media reports concerning a loan to the organisation by its chief executive, including the circumstances of the loan and its repayment. Sport Ireland was not notified at any stage in 2017 about any apparent material deterioration in the FAI's financial position, as per Sport Ireland's terms and conditions of grant approval. And has sought additional clarification in relation to this matter. So this is the bit where it gets pretty serious for John Delaney and the FAI, and that they actually have to answer for the fact that they take public funding. It's very straightforward. If you take a grant, Sport Ireland gets to say these are the terms and conditions under which you get the grant. You sign up to those and everybody goes, yeah, and on we go. And you've seen with other smaller sports organisations in the past that Sport Ireland has the possibility to hold grants back, which obviously would be very detrimental to the overall finances of any of the sports bodies, and they do that to ensure that corporate governance is happening properly. And the FAI obviously have instigated a review of their corporate governance policy. They're going to have a press conference in April. What are we at now? The 20th of March. So it'll be very interesting to see what would happen. Are we going to play that video now? Yeah, okay, so we'll do this. So Dan McDonald was on last night with Joe and Kev. He's been having a look at the John Delaney FAI loan. Have a look.
Is this affecting the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month business of the FAI? We've always generally been told that things are okay. There's been an ability to invest and continue to invest in the game. While there have been references to cash flow at various times, we never really were aware of a scenario whereby something like this action could be required.
Yeah.
And that's what leads that's what leads to so much curiosity and further questions about this. And there have been subsequent FAI statements, but they haven't really addressed that basic point to any real satisfactory degree that would reassure you in any way that this is no big deal. I don't think you can say this is no big deal, because it clearly is. They were in court, as you said.
Yeah.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, and that was before the Sport Ireland statement had been issued. The FAI issued a statement after that saying that, we got your letter and we're working on our response. The association are currently preparing a reply to Mr. Treacy and will respond at the earliest opportunity. So this is a story that's going to run and run. There will be a meeting on the 9th of April with the council of the FAI, which is a bigger body than the board. So it'll be interesting to see if it comes up with that.
The big job now for the FAI is to find out who actually leaked the information to the Sunday Times. If only there was some sort of other espionage story in the news right now and another spy who might have his services available under a pseudonym.
We can probably get Sean Hartnett's number if anybody needs it. So roll with it. Elliot plans double Grand National tilt for a stable star Tiger Roll. So here we go for this. It's not on the back page, but it's a beautiful picture of Tiger Roll in the front of the Examiner this morning. And any doubts surrounding Tiger Roll's participation in the Aintree Grand National were allayed by his trainer Gordon Elliott yesterday. He also revealed that the gutsy 9-year-old may be one of a number of his charges who could follow up in the Irish Grand National at Ferryhouse as well. So Sean Kelly writing today about why the GPA should be driving the debate on the second tier football championship. And interesting piece from Kieran Shannon on the back. The tiniest of cracks are appearing in the blue machine. I see you're highlighting bits in that, so if you want to...
Well, one of them is a crappy quiz question for this week. A nice bit of trivia from Kieran Shannon in there somewhere, which I'm not going to give away just yet. Kieran Shannon basically reckons that he's back in the field over Dublin in 2020. But
I was wondering, can you make that bet?
He's not, well, I'm not sure if he can for 2020. He's not convinced about the field versus Dublin in 2019. It's very interesting, actually, if you look across the papers this morning, how the whole Dublin thing has been covered. Kieran Shannon is kind of in the middle ground as the tiniest of cracks are appearing. How much can we read into it? Time will tell. Conor McKeown in the Herald has looked at the statistics and says that they actually back Dublin up quite well. He's saying that their average concession rate this year in the league is 14.2 points, which is roughly in line with last year, so that's a good sign. He says that, and they've got the highest scoring tally across all 4 divisions and the best points difference, and they play the lowest seed in Cavan this Sunday, so that's a positive. And they're missing a lot of players. You look at the likes of Fitzsimons, Philly McMahon, Merchant, Lowndes, McCaffrey, and then John Small only played a bit part at the weekend. Another positive, obviously. But then if you go onto the Sun, it's kind of taken at a different angle because the statistics are there, I guess, and Gordon Manning is writing that Dublin's average scoring return then is at its lowest in 3 years, and their concession rate is higher than it has been for 5 years. But he kind of points to the fact that even when these averages have been worse, they've still managed to qualify for league finals. So ultimately, it depends on what your point of view is in all of this and how panicked you should be about Dublin. I'm kind of leaning on Conor McKeown's side of things here, that ultimately you look at the personnel that they're missing, and ultimately that is a huge factor in all of this.
It does feel like other teams are catching up, though, that there's more depth to the competitors who are better organised, who have learned more, who just are different. They're going to represent a completely different challenge this year from what we've seen before. Tyrone are better.
Yes,
like they're
better prepared to win.
And so Tyrone hammered in an All-Ireland semi-final, beaten easily in an All-Ireland final. That's like progress, although it doesn't really look, there's no clear enjoyable signs or benefits to it. It's not like you're like, oh yeah, we got really close. Maybe they have to run them close and lose a close game before they can actually turn them over.
Yeah, and Kieran Shannon actually makes the point that when in relation to his kind of backing the field in the year 2020, he reckons the Peter Keane and James Horn projects are actually going to reach their end point in 2020. I'm not sure if I agree with that on the Mayo front. On the Kerry front, I think he's bang on. I think it will be next year before they get within shooting distance of actually beating Dublin and winning in All-Ireland. But from Mayo's perspective, I think it's this year, isn't it? I think you look at the age profile of their winners, of their players who are capable of giving Dublin a run for their money, and the sooner the better, I think, really, for them to get another opportunity. But obviously, Kieran Shannon's worked with James Horn quite closely over the past couple of years. He might have more of an intimate, he definitely has more of an intimate knowledge of how he operates, and some of the young players coming through Mayo than I have. So you trust him to make a take that those young players really are kind of the real deal. And we have seen that, the likes of Matthew Ruan, the founded league really, potentially across all teams, playing unbelievable stuff for Mayo. The other story in the Irish Examiner is Harry Kane. The headline reading, "Ireland call never came," says England skipper Kane. So he says, "My nan and granddad were Irish on my dad's side. I had that decision, but it never really came about. As I started playing in the Premier League, the England call-up didn't come along after that. There were rumours, and I never said no to anyone. I don't know if they spoke to my agent, but I always wanted to play for England, and my dream was to play for England. Thankfully, that worked out." I wonder what would have happened if the Ireland call did come when Harry Kane was kind of flittering away, looking like he might not be
not doing great.
Yeah,
like Trapp wouldn't have picked him.
True.
On the front of the Times Ireland edition, Sport Ireland seeks answers over Delaney check to FAI. So this story is not going away. On Monday, the Times revealed that a whistleblower had contacted a member of the Oireachtas Committee on Transport, Tourism and Sport with a number of concerns about governance at the FAI. It's understood that the whistleblower is preparing to make a formal complaint to the Office of the Director of Corporate Enforcement. The politician who received the correspondence is to seek advice from the clerk of the committee about whether the concerns shall be shared with other committee members, and if they can be put to representatives from the FAI when they give evidence next month. Do you have any confidence that the joint committee is going to ask any good questions, will have their homework done, will be informed, or will it be the stereotypical grandstanding bullshit that we see from our politicians whenever any of these committees are televised or have any media interest? My prediction is the latter.
Those questions that were publicly put to the FAI the other day should be printed and hand-delivered. They should be scanned and emailed, and find some sort of pigeon to actually get them to the members of that committee who will be grilling and I use that word very loosely, John Delaney in a couple of weeks. Make sure those questions are in their hands, and that if they don't ask those questions or have a line of questioning along those questions, then something is seriously wrong here. That's, at least they don't have an excuse to say, well, we didn't see them. Make sure they get them, and they can't blame ignorance on the part of perhaps not asking the right questions, because at the very least, those questions need to be asked.
Well, yeah, I mean, confidence is low in that committee. Maguire gets nod to lead Irish attack, so unfortunately Shane Long set out training and has been forced to withdraw from the Ireland squad. I think we need Shane Long, although it's been such a long time since he has been at the top of his form. He's still our best striker, right?
The gap is narrowing. The gap is closing. Like it would seem ridiculous to even suggest that Sean Maguire would be a better fit for the starting line position for Ireland, like say a year ago, ahead of Shane Long, even with Shane Long's poor form. That gap is surely narrowing at this point. It looks like Maguire is going to be at the start or at the weekend, and like you do have to be concerned about Long, don't you? Even if he was fully fit, like you wouldn't be fully confident in him to actually deliver the goods, perhaps against Georgia, against Gibraltar, you'd imagine so. Like, is Gibraltar the perfect kind of start to all of this, that whoever's playing just gets that little carrot of confidence all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's like a crappy 0-0 draw that we've seen this Ireland
that would be a disaster
team have before, you know. I don't know, maybe they score a breakaway goal and we beat them 9-1 and everybody's happy.
Was there a 4G pitch in Cyprus that time? I don't think so. At least we can blame the 4G pitch this time.
I don't think 4G existed. There's a great story from, it's actually from Twitter, but the Times Ireland edition has it on the back page. Jose Mourinho's Chelsea players were instructed to foul Lionel Messi to stop him from tearing them apart in their Champions League last 16 tie against Barcelona in 2006. A leaked report, that's the theme of the day, a leaked scouting report published on the Performance Analysis in Action Twitter account showed they were told to stop Messi by any means. So the scouting report includes lines like, the report noted Messi, now 31, had quality and speed but was very left-footed. You got it there?
I do, yeah. It's Performance Analysis in Action on Twitter. It came out a couple of days ago. It's really interesting. So yeah, Messi, as you say, quality and speed, but very left-footed. If option is to foul him, it is important to do it outside the box and as early as possible, as recovered from an injury recently. So foul him early, foul him often, make sure it's outside the box. Jose Mourinho has rushed to distance himself from this, that he did not compile the report. He hasn't compiled the report in a long, long time. Do you know who did compile the report? Andre Villas-Boas.
Oh, wow.
And it is
friend
incredible.
Of the show.
Friend of the show. Incredible. This is like one of my favourite Barcelona teams, like the Barcelona team that had Iniesta and Van Bommel and the likes of them on the bench. Clearly he's got nothing good to say about Oliger. He says he makes mistakes with the ball, making him the ideal target to pressure. Defensively poor, has no pace and chooses the timings of the tackle poorly. When he tries to recover, he is too late. He's got no speed. He's pretty harsh as well on Carlos Puyol. He's aggressive but very emotional. He says he gets crazy with the referee and fouls against him and goes mad in provocations, bad positional sense and bad leadership of defence.
Wow.
Which is pretty harsh. Rafael Marquez then, in defending he is now more exposed because he lacks pace, and when using their offside trap he cannot recover depth behind as Puyol can. He fakes contacts like no other, and Deco gets the same sort of beating from Villas-Boas here. He falls very easily to gain free kicks, while Silvinho doesn't know how to defend, neither to control inside space. And then the final interesting thing that I picked out was Ronaldinho. Very poor transition and defensive work, exploit. Constant cheater, falls easily. So a lot of cutting stuff there. Of course, there was lots of good stuff as well said.
Yeah, but how do you think Jose Mourinho felt reading that about like those players? Constant cheater, falls easily, when that was the hallmark of his Porto team. Like, he's like, oh wow, this guy's great. I love him. I must have him on my team. That's what he was thinking, right? Well,
yeah, he is. I'm not sure that. I'm sure that the phrase constant cheater here is used as an aid to Jose Mourinho rather than as a kind of mini complaint. They're like, don't touch this guy, basically.
10 out of 10 for this guy for being a little constant cheater.
Exactly.
Long exit opens door for Maguire is the back page headline on the Irish Independent this morning, with picture of Gavin Bazunu and goalkeeping coach Dan Connor during the Ireland under-21s training session in Abbottstown yesterday. Cora was the greatest. This is the news confirmed that Cora Staunton has retired from inter-county football, and her former manager Frank Brown says she was the greatest Gaelic footballer ever. Ulster sweat over Henderson fitness for Euro showdown. Ulster obviously need everything they possibly can get if they're going to have any chance of overturning Leinster at home in the Heineken Cup quarter-final. But obviously Ian Henderson went off injured. Didn't go off injured, sorry, suffered a knee injury in the game against France a couple of weeks ago and hasn't got back to full training yet, so he might be out for that. Will Addison and Craig Gilroy both going to miss the Leinster game apparently, so Ulster not having the full deck to play with. No trustin' Dustin is the brilliant back page headline on the Racing Post. Market leaders there to be taken on in Copperhead contest, so this is ahead of so let's see. World number 1 Dustin Johnson tees up in the Valspar Championship for the first time since 2010 this week, topping the betting after finishing 5th at Sawgrass on Sunday. A personal best in the 5th major, but they think, screw you, Dustin Johnson. We've been fooled too many times by you. Tiger Roll. Bookies fear Tiger mauling after Elliott gives Aintree go-ahead. Wow. I mean, if Tiger Roll goes and wins the National, that would be unbelievable.
As the League and Championship double, I think it's referred to. The Irish Daily, you're done, are you?
Yeah.
The Irish Daily Mail is lone hunters. Ross and Treacy demand urgent answers on FAI's Delaney dealings, and ex-spy claims IRFU hired him to combat leaks. We've been speaking about that this morning. The Herald then goes with strike threat. Maguire confident Irish will end goal famine in Euro ties.
They are the best eyebrows in Irish football, aren't they? In Irish sport.
Great question. Well,
no one gets close to them.
Kevin Kilban. Does he not have
look over there and see?
Not have great eyebrows.
That is no. Kevin Kilban's eyebrows.
Sean Maguire's eyebrows are excellent. So, like it's
stick it back up there so we can. Can we get it? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? It's like, wow, I've just put my fingers in the socket.
They're independent of Sean Maguire, I think. The eyebrows, they've got their own kind of force of personality. Kenny Cunningham's eyebrows are the market leader. How did I forget Kenny Cunningham? The back page of the Mirror this morning is I will not jump ship. New Irish star Josh Cullen says, don't worry, I have no intention of switching like pal Declan. We've just entered full paranoia at this point, haven't we? Where everybody who has dual nationality is seen as a threat.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens. You know, you emerge from a broken relationship, damaged and feeling slightly tender.
Well, yeah, it's... we all are feeling tender. It's there's no reason to feel tender here. I will not jump ship. Is that more or less a pledge of allegiance? Then the national anthem is catchy
and kissing the badge.
The Irish Daily Star this morning goes with takes lat. Giggs hits back at Ibra's barbs, and Rice saying I am English. That's his first interview yesterday in the England camp. The Sun then goes with FAI loan probe. Minister tells Association to provide a full explanation. And then a couple of the UK back pages. The Daily Telegraph goes with Kane takes aim. World Cup exploits were just the start, promises England captain. And there's an exclusive by Daniel Taylor on the back page of The Guardian this morning. Crew claim they did not arrange for boys to stay with Bennells. So Crew Alexandra are taking on Barry Bennells' victims in the High Court by claiming it was the parents, not the club, who let boys stay overnight with the man who's been described as an industrial-scale child molester and is serving a 31-year prison sentence. You've also got Geraint Thomas and Chris Froome there. Tour de force. Geraint Thomas and Chris Froome excited by takeover as Britain's richest man, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, confirms Team Ineos will be unveiled at the Tour de Yorkshire.
Hooray. Hooray.
Richer than ever. Saving cycling.
Hooray. We love it. It's great. It's
the marginal gains will get even more marginal. The gains will get even more gainy.
There was a brilliant tweet yesterday from Dan Rowan, which I just want to do proper justice to. So Dan Rowan from the BBC. Interesting that Ineos Supremo Sir Jim Ratcliffe lauded cycling's green credentials when explaining saving Team Sky. Friends of the Earth today described Ineos, a major plastic producer and with interest in fracking, as a planet-wrecking company. Hooray. Do love me a bit of planet wreckers who are sports washing their reputations with a team. I mean, come on, did you not read any of the press about Team Sky? Don't you know that they won't wash your reputation? Let's wait and see what happens. We're going to move on here. We've teamed up with Laya Healthcare, the official health and wellbeing partner to Leinster Rugby, to launch Wellbeing Wednesday. For the next 9 weeks, one lucky winner per week will win a Blue Book voucher for €250 for your very own wellbeing retreat. All 9 winners will then go into a draw, and one lucky winner will receive a wellbeing hamper and a Leinster season ticket for the 2019-2020 season. To enter, simply answer this question. Tell us the 4 teams that Leinster have beaten to win the Heineken Champions Cup in each of the 4 seasons they've won it. So we want the teams that they beat in the final of the Heineken Champions Cup in each of the 4 years they've won it. You can send us your answer on any of our Off the Ball social channels. Make sure you use the hashtag It's Good to Live. So we're looking for the Heineken Champions Cup runners-up from 2009, 2011, 2012 and 2018. Off the top of your head, do you know it?
I was kind of... I was
zoned out there, yeah?
I was zoned out. What are we looking for a Champions Cup?
Attention span. Whoa, look a bird.
It's early in the morning.
Jason McAteer joined last night's football show to talk Ferdinand versus Van Dijk, the second coming of Mick McCarthy, this year's Premier League title race and botox.
What are you struggling with at the minute?
My back. Oh,
back?
Mate, in bits.
I need a knee op, to be honest. My surgeon...
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Right.
My surgeon, Rob Harvey, great man, wants to give me an injection.
Who says my surgeon? You know, that's like someone that's going in, like getting botox and plastic surgery. He's my surgeon, you know.
I'm on the out botox.
You're not.
I had to go for me wedding.
You're not. What a tool. Come on.
No, seriously, I was under pressure to be fresh-faced. You know, obviously I got married 5 years ago. I mean, my missus made me have it. I swear.
Where? Forehead?
Yeah, in my forehead, yeah. But like, because I tell stories, I need a bit of expression.
Sorry, JP,
in my face.
can we try and dig out a picture of Jason McAteer on his wedding day, please? 5 years ago.
There is one. There's one on. You'll find it on Google. I'm coming out of the church.
God.
Have a look at me slaphead. Seriously.
So when's this? About 5 years ago?
Yeah, I've not had it since.
And did it do?
I lie. I can't lie. I've not had it since. I can't lie when Kev's around.
I can't believe you're getting bloody botox.
Yeah, I've had it. It's a right few quid as well. It's about 250 quid.
And how long are you young for?
It doesn't last. In some people, it lasts longer than others. I get about. It's like as if I'd still do it. I don't do it now because I think it's a waste of money. I'd rather go and buy a nice Titleist driver.
Without a doubt. You're going to get much...
Titleist.
Oh, yeah.
It's all right, yeah.
Yeah. We're editing that out, actually.
Yeah.
It's live, you can't. It's gone out, it's done.
Not going out on the radio.
Damage is done. What did you ask me about botox?
How long does it last?
I get about 3.5 months, maybe 4.
And so if you, because I notice when you speak, your eyebrows go up and down, you're expressive.
Yeah, I need that.
So do you lose that when it's...
Yeah. You like that, telling a story, and you're laughing, it's just the same thing, and people are like, is he serious or is he being funny? You need expression, Joe, don't you?
Here's the picture for those of you streaming.
Slap it.
The head on you. Honest to
Look
God.
at my beautiful wife.
I can't believe you just admitted that. I cannot believe you just admitted that.
So if you try and push your eyebrows up there in that picture, what happens?
Well, you can't. You literally can't.
Oh, no, Jace.
Do you think I look all right, though?
You look good.
You do, to be fair.
You look well.
See, it works.
Have your boyish charm still with you, innit?
Thanks, Kev.
Honestly.
And do you have in your cheeks as well, or where does it go?
No,
just
they're
the forehead.
fillers. You have in your cheeks, isn't it? I believe.
You believe?
No, I've not had any other cosmetic surgery.
That's good. That's good.
Wow. A full hour of Jason McAteer goodness for your perusal on our social channels. You can subscribe to the Off the Wall Football Show podcast on whatever it is that you get your podcasts. You can also get them, of course, on offtheball.com/podcasts.
When you've got the money, you may as well do it. Is what I say.
250 quid for, you know.
I thought it was more expensive than that.
I don't know. I mean, he's got a big forehead and it worked, but like, he doesn't really need it, does he?
No, I didn't really notice too much of a difference there. Like, the sun was shining on his forehead, it just looked shiny.
Yeah.
Which I guess for a shiny forehead, money can't buy a shiny forehead, really.
You get rid of the lines. There's another photo. You just get rid of the lines across your forehead.
Yeah.
It's like pumping up a football.
Okay, fair enough. But I can't believe, like, when he said, what does it last for 3.5 months?
Yeah, it's quite a long time, isn't it?
I thought the opposite. I thought that if you get Botox,
Lasts for ages.
like your face is permanently changed.
Oh, it's just like a little injection of botulism.
And does it like actually help the skin? Does it make your skin younger? I realise I'm asking a lot of questions here.
I mean, it's poison.
Right, okay.
It's a form of poison that people inject to give a temporary gleam. So if there is something big like a wedding, you know, it's like, oh, Dad, you look quite young. He's like, wow, actually, I was way older than I looked there because I got a bit of poison injected into my forehead.
Would you ever consider it?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm like happy aging normally.
Are you?
Yeah, totally. Like,
Okay. Good for you.
You've got to make an accommodation with the fact that life is nasty, brutal, and short.
Or maybe you don't have to do that.
You don't, but you'll never be happy, and your soul will be empty.
Are you saying Botox is the root of all unhappiness?
No, not at all. I'm saying that, you know, See, he's got a very important international jet-setting lifestyle, working in the Gulf.
Yeah, the visage is important.
Yeah.
Extremely important. The people in the Gulf will actually appreciate that.
Those Al Jazeera, or whatever it's called now, beIN Sports.
Oh yeah.
Those beIN Sports, you know, they want your shiny forehead not to have lines and wrinkles. That's the type of consumer they are.
And that's why Richard Keys brings in the viewers, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why he waxed his hands. Are you too young to remember Richard Keys' hairy hands?
No, I'm not, unfortunately. It's probably my first memory.
Is it?
It's just the horror of what the world can bring. Just waking up in a cold sweat as a toddler. It's like, oh, Richard Keys' hands. I think it was actually my first word, my first phrase, Richard Keys' hairy hands.
It's just after 8:27 this morning here on OTBAM. We've loads more coming up for you on the show. A reminder too, you can listen to the show every morning on offtheball.com. Just like a breakfast sports radio show. You can hit listen, minimise, and you can go about your morning. Enda McGinley's coming up a little later on to talk Tyrone beating Dublin. Dr. Brian Moore, the founder of Orreco, is with us after 9 o'clock. We'll have the sports news with Darren Cleary. But up next, Neil Treacy is going to be in studio for the Type 5. Before that, though, Essex-born Josh Cullen was speaking to the media yesterday about his Irish call-up and his dedication to Irish football.
It comes as a surprise, really. Obviously, I see the provisional squad and I wasn't named in it. And then Friday morning, before we were due to meet up on a Sunday, Lee Bowyer sort of caught me in the boot room as we were about to go out to train, and he just said, "Oh, have you heard the good news?" And I said, "No, like, what's that?" And he said, "Oh, Mick McCarthy's just been on the phone and he's going to call you into the squad." So obviously I was buzzing with the news and really happy to be called up for the first time to the senior team for my country. So it was brilliant news.
You played under 16s for England, if I'm right in saying, and under 21s for Ireland, like another West Ham player. Did you have sort of a decision that you had to make at some stage, and how did you come to it?
Not really. I played under 16, one appearance for England, and then I played under 19s European qualifiers for Ireland, and then captained the 21s and made a lot of appearances for the 21s. As soon as I committed myself to Ireland, I was fully committed, and this is what I've dreamt of, being part of the senior squad, and I'm over the moon and really proud to be here.
You're welcome along to another edition of Neil Treacy's Tide 5. Neil is in studio after a pretty disappointing Six Nations campaign for Ireland, but looking through our list of what we're going to discuss in today's episode, things aren't terminal.
No, not really. It was tough looking back on the match. I've watched it 3 times now, which is more than enough to have watched that game of rugby on Saturday. I have picked out a couple of good things from the scrum. Well, one good thing from the scrum in particular. The scrum was mixed on Saturday. It really was, because Ireland gave away 3 penalties on the Welsh feed, but at the same time, like 2 of those were simple errors. They wouldn't be things that would worry you completely. It was a slip bind from Cian Healy, and one was Tadhg Furlong dropped to a knee. There was one penalty Wales got that looked a bit dodgy. They ran around a little bit. It's not really something I said I'd go into in detail here, because in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't matter that much. What I am going to look at, though, is there's just one Irish scrum from early on in the game. They did put Wales under an awful lot of pressure. They won a couple of turnovers in the second half in particular. David Kilcoyne was excellent when he came on. And as the game went on, the scrum got an awful lot better. So this is just one from early on that we're going to look at. And yeah, as you can see there, this is the setup at the start. You can see circle there is Tadhg Furlong and Rob Evans, the Welsh lucid. You can see Rob Evans, his bind is actually quite short. You can see the way the elbow is pointing down into the ground. And this is something that Furlong's going to take advantage of as we roll it on to the next clip. So as you can see there, what Furlong has actually done here now is, and it is, strictly speaking, it will be illegal, he's actually shortened his own bind. Normally you'd have to have it long. He has kind of come in and just locked him in under the armpit, just on top of the arm. And what he's doing is he's taking advantage of Rob Evans' short bind and just tucking him down and basically just squeezing his left shoulder down into the ground so that he's off balance. What you can see there as well, though, is all those yellow lines. The Welsh forwards at the moment, they are pretty much driving in the same direction. The ball is also at the back for Gareth Davies, but Ireland are going to put them under an awful lot of pressure, as what we can see in the next one. So what Furlong has done is, by squeezing Evans down, he's been able to pretty much split Rob Evans and Ken Owens, the Welsh hooker. So as you can see, they're now driving in different directions. So Furlong has just come right in between the two, and that's exactly what a tight head's job is. It's to get in and attack the hooker. And as you can see there, they're going backwards very quickly. And as what happens in a scrum is if you're going backwards, the ball coming out just isn't clean. You know, the scrum half is under a lot of pressure to get it out as quick as he can. And as you can see, Davies has to rush. What Cian Healy does very well here. Davies has just picked up the ball. He's about to pass it. And as the scrum is flying through, Cian Healy's obviously just about seeing this, as you can see in the black circle. And he's got a hand up onto Gareth Davies and just about stopped him passing the ball. Davies ends up spilling it, and Ireland actually pick up the loose ball and counter-attack.
Right, it's very interesting. So that was like as good as it got from an Irish scrum perspective?
No, to be honest, as the longer the game went on into the second half, it was actually something that was very, very good. They got a good penalty against the head when Dave Kilcoyne came on. So I think the early mistakes were pretty much in that kind of middle period and end of the first half. I think the Cian Healy's one that he gave away was right at the end of the first half, and Wales kicked it for 3 points, which ended up proving to be costly. But as the game wore on, Ireland actually did get on top of the scrum, and I think it's just something that wouldn't really worry you going into the World Cup.
The other person we want to talk about from Saturday's game is Liam Williams.
Yeah, this is a good one here now, because we spoke last week about, we had two examples last week when we did this. Of the first was when Ireland used this against France, where Keith Earl stood at the front of the line-out and kind of just hid in behind the maul and found that gap to go through for his try. And also the example of George North, where he went in as the first man in the line-out and stole those few yards. So as you can see here, Liam Williams has gone in as number one in the line-out. And we can actually see as well Tadhg Furlong and Conor Murray, probably because of what George North did last week, they're very wary of that ball going in short. Murray and Furlong, they're pretty much both locked onto the eyes of Liam Williams and Ken Owens, just wondering, are they going to go short? As we can see, if we roll it on though, they've decided no, they're actually going for a proper line out. They throw it towards the back. And you can see there Liam Williams, what he's doing, he's taking a big long loop around. We're going to roll it on again. So what happens here is Wales are actually setting up as if they're about to maul. They want to kind of, they want to draw in a few of the Irish forwards, especially around the fringes, Cian Healy and Rory Best. Healy has gone in there already. And Josh Navidi, what he's doing is he's going in as if he's about to be that guy who's going to pick the ball at the back of the maul and just kind of drift back and hold it on the hip. But while he's doing this, Liam Williams is taking his big loop around, and Cian Healy actually does very well at the end to spot that again. Like, it's 2 bits in a row where Healy's awareness was quite good, got up, got the hit on Liam Williams. He didn't actually complete the tackle fully. Williams ended up getting another couple of yards, but it did just stop him in his tracks a little bit, and you know, it really limited the damage. So it was pretty good awareness, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those moves that sometimes is it catches a team off guard. Like in terms of what Ireland could do, they seem prepared for something on that particular line out. Like, is there a situation there where there's just a multiple of these things up the sleeve, or is there anything Ireland could have done a little bit better to kind of stop the yards that he did gain?
Yeah, like, I mean, you know, what could easily have happened there is Rory Best could have been sucked in and thought that this was going to be a line-out as well, or a maul, I should say. He could have got sucked in and really attacked in on as well as Cian Healy to try defend that maul, and that's where the big gap would have been for Liam Williams. Likewise as well, Healy mightn't have been looking up. He could have been looking down at the ground as he was driving into that maul. He mightn't have realised Liam Williams was looping around as well. And then again, you have another gap. Rory Best might have had to come in to close that. And then you have a gap on the outside.
Yeah, it's a smart move though, isn't it? And we do want to talk as well about the other side of the ball and Wales defending against the maul.
Well, no, this is a Welsh attacking maul we're going to look at first. It's quite good on both parts, because first of all, Ireland do what we think Ireland did very well. Wales have just taken their line out. They're about to set up their maul. The Irish players have stood off completely. They're not engaging in this maul at all. So at the moment, it isn't a maul. If Wales start moving forward with the ball, then you're into a truck and trailer situation and the ball is turned over to Ireland. So they're holding off. And what this does is, if you just go back again. If we just go back, so we can see there, at the moment, there is no offside line because there is no maul. So what James Ryan, number 5, is about to do, and we can roll it on again, he's allowed just go straight into the back of that, where the ball is being kept. So he just goes in at that angle and he's allowed to take it. It's perfectly legal. There's nothing wrong with doing it, and it's a great move to try every now and again. But what Wales do very well is, as of right now, because James Ryan has gone in, now it's a maul. Now they can start going forward. And in the end, they actually do very well. I think it's Josh Navidi gets James Ryan out of there and limits the danger. You can see there the little circle, that's where Alan Wynne-Jones is now protecting the ball. But what Ireland make the mistake on, and this is Healy making the mistake this time, he just comes in at the side and he just attacks straight in at the side there. You can see the buffer of Justin Tipperich and Adam Beard. If Ireland want to go after Alan Wynne-Jones there, they have to get through those two guys first. So what Ireland ended up doing is they just skipped through ahead and took the third man and was in the side. It was a penalty for Wales.
What was your general sense from a technical perspective? So you go through frame by frame almost of the game. You watched it back 3 times of the technical aspects of Ireland's play. Was it a systems failure that allowed the scoreline to be as emphatic as it was for Wales? Or are you looking at the little minutiae here and thinking there's actually just little errors here and there that are quite fixable?
No, I think the worrying part really was that it was pretty much the same game plan from start to finish, and Wales were comfortable dealing with it. They just let Ireland have the ball. They trusted themselves to make their tackles, and they weren't really troubled aside from it. Even if, I don't even think a few handling errors, if Ireland have kept the ball in hand a couple of extra times, I don't really think that it would have made a big difference in the grand scheme of things. Wales went there on Saturday with a tactic that a tactic to take on Ireland, and it suited that game down to the ground, and it worked perfectly.
For sure. We do also, before we wrap up, want to focus on England-Scotland on Saturday.
We also have a defensive maul on Wales.
Of course,
I'm jumping ahead. So remember last week we spoke about Adam Beard and how good he was at just getting in and those big hands coming in over the maul and disrupting things. There were a couple examples in the game at the weekend where, first of all, how Ireland dealt with it well, and then a couple of minutes later when Wales actually managed to get a turnover. So the first one here we're going to have. This is, maul is just being set up. You can see there Sean O'Brien is the Irish guy who's taken the line out. He's put the ball back, and Adam Beard is trying to reach in over him. So now we'll go on to the next one. And you can see Beard is actually trying to, he's trying to bring the arms in over, and Sean O'Brien is literally just grabbing him by he is just pulling him off. He is just doing everything he can to stop him getting his hands over there. We'll go on again. Tyg Furlong comes in there next. You can see Sean O'Brien is he's just blocking. He's just holding his arms out left and right, doing everything he can to stop him getting in the top of the ball. And what Furlong does well here now, it's all about the protection. It's just get one man behind another, a long train of individuals, get that ball on the hip, and all of a sudden the gap between Tyg Furlong and the ball and Adam Beard is as big as he wanted to be. And Ireland take the ball and go away. What we're going to look at next, though, this is literally just a couple of minutes later. Ireland had won a penalty, and this is where Beard is at his best. So James Ryan has taken the line at this time. You can see Beard has just got his arms in around, trying to wriggle his way through the middle of that maul. We'll go on again. Now, that's the left hand of Adam Beard. That's just got in on top of the jersey of Rory Best, who's the ball carrier. So all of a sudden, Ireland are now looking in a little bit of trouble. We'll go on again. And now we've got 2 hands over him. He's actually wrapped in around, he's under his, over his back, under his chest. He's locked in on that. Like we were saying, like a snake last week, capturing its prey or something like that. It is just slowly capturing you. And then you can see how hard, James Ryan, Conor Murray, Rory Best are doing to try get that ball out as quick as they possibly can. Because they know as soon as that hits the ground now, it's going to be a Welsh turnover ball. Yeah. And that's what happened. That's what it was.
It's incredibly effective, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it comes to disrupting a maul coming up against you, it seems like from what you've been speaking about over the last couple of weeks that Alan Beard is now right up there. He's put himself into that very top echelon of somebody who can be a disruptor in that regard.
Yeah, he's huge. It's just about the size of he's what, 6'6", 6'7". And when you have so many players in a maul situation where they're trying to get down low, he's just reaching over.
Yeah.
And you just have, I think Sean O'Brien did very well in that earlier clip of just doing everything you can to try protect us. There was another example I remember later on in the game after Quinn Roux had come on, and he was pretty much just wrestling Adam Beard. It was like watching MMA or something like that, the two of them standing up in the middle of the maul, and he was just grappling him and trying to push his hands every way he could, and it did work. It's just, it can look very, very messy. The last example we have, though, is of a line-out move that Scotland tried in that game against England on Saturday, and it was a lovely idea. What they're doing is they're just throwing this ball way over the back of the line-out and getting their back line to come in and try catch it. So as we can see there, the ball is way up in the air. No one had gone up to try jump for it. So it's come down there now to Sam Johnson. He is charged up. He is taking it, and what he's going to do is he's just going to try and feed this into Byron McGuigan for a straight run in under the post. But what England have done very well is they have reacted to this. They have seen that a Scottish jumper hasn't gone up in the line-out, so they know this is going out to the back line. We need to come up as quick as possible. Scotland were very unlucky in the fact that, as you can see there, the tackle from Tuolangi, if I had the video to show you, it is like, it is a red card worthy offence. I don't know how Tuilagi hasn't been cited over it. It was definite head contact, but Owen Farrell is still there right in front of Byron McGuigan, ready to take him on. Even if Tuilagi's tackle had been legitimate, it's good English defence. It's all about the system, and these guys coming up together. Because last week when I came in, I was going to use an example from Super Rugby a couple of weeks ago, and just when I saw that a couple of days ago, I had to use this again. This is where this exact line-out works perfectly. So this is a game between the Bulls and the Lions in Super Rugby a couple of weeks ago. The throw is coming in. You can see just that black circle at the top.
Yeah.
Very top. So it's a complete overthrow. They've actually thrown guys up in the line-out. And what that's done, that's probably actually just about given them a half second of time to convince the opposition backline that they are actually going for a line-out. They can't come up and meet this. But the Bulls know exactly what they're doing. So their centre, Dylan Sage, is charging up. He's going to catch this. And what he has on his inside then is Roscoe Speckman charging into that gap that's being created. Malcolm Marks has drifted out, the Lions hooker, because he has had to go to the ball. He has had to go to Dylan Sage to try and stop him. But all that's done is just created a massive hole for Roscoe Speckman to run into. And as you can see there, he's straight through. There's the trio of Lions backs that have just been a little bit slow to come up, but the gap is already there. The hole's created. Ultimately, doesn't get in for a try. He's actually stopped a few yards short of the line, but I think about 4 or 5 phases later, they actually got in for the score.
How satisfying is it for you watching one of those moves come off?
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful, because it's all about timing.
Yeah.
And I think what you have to do as well is what Scotland probably didn't do in that game against England. They didn't sell that they were going for a line-out. They didn't put anyone up. Whereas what the Bulls did there is by sending up a jumper in the middle of the line-out, it just about convinced the Lions backline that they probably needed a hold back. Because what happens is, as soon as the ball is thrown, all the back, they're allowed to come up. But if they have charged up and the ball is caught in the line-out, they are offside. So you have to know when to take the chance, almost,
Yeah, for sure.
And England knew to take the chance because they knew there wasn't going to be a Scottish player going up for it.
Yeah, it was good. It's good reaction, actually. I guess sort of this innate awareness of where to be instead of being prescribed where you need to be against certain moves. That England had that awareness.
Having said all that, I don't know how Manu Tuilagi wasn't cited.
It's true. It's a very, very good point. So final word then, as we wrap up the Tide 5 for the Six Nations, I guess. From a technical standpoint, it doesn't seem that you're too down on this Ireland team, that there are fixable elements pretty much everywhere.
There are fixable elements. There are definitely things that worry you, of course.
Yeah.
Just that in the game, the big games where it really mattered against England and Wales, that Ireland were outplayed completely. And, England and Wales tactically knew exactly what they were doing and how to deal with Ireland, and how heavy and comfortable the defeats were would be a major worry.
Yeah, well, it is the end of the Six Nations, but not the end of the Tide 5. We'll be back over
waiting in the long grass.
Waiting in the long grass. Exactly. And plenty
all part of the master plan.
Plenty of provincial and club rugby to dissect over the next couple of weeks. If you've got any questions, any rugby nerdery you want discussed, you can tweet at Neil_Treacy or at Off The Ball as well. Neil Treacy, thank you very much.
Cheers, Owen.
All right. If you want any more of that goodness, you can follow Neil as Owen just told you to on Twitter. I got a little bit distracted there because I'm watching Tyrone put Dublin to the sword, some of the highlights from the weekend, and I'm delighted to say that we've got Andy McGinley on the line with us to talk about this. Tyrone were really impressive, and I'd say it must be hard for the Tyrone fans not to be getting a little bit carried away. I understand that it's the league and, once bitten and twice shy, but Tyrone were bloody good. Oh, trying to make contact with Enda there. Hi Enda, can you hear us?
We got close a couple of times 2 or 3 years ago, and then this past 2 years it felt as if we were further away really than ever, with really heavy and disheartening defeats, just swatted aside by Dublin with ease. So to see the team really shake Dublin, and Dublin looked a shadow of themselves, not just because they're a wee bit out of form, but even whenever Tyrone had them on the ropes. And in that final 20 minutes where you always expected, and we've got used to Dublin in all the league games, just always been able to make a game of it, even whenever they're not playing particularly well. They looked flat and they looked beat from 15, 20 minutes out, which was stunning to see. So from a Tyrone point of view, really, really positive. I suppose the biggest thing is we seem to be bringing something very different, and it's something that really seems to work against Dublin. So I think that's a source of great encouragement.
Yeah, just explain to us a little bit about what difference there is in terms of how the game plan is being implemented, because it looked like a very different style of play that they were espousing.
Yeah, so really from about the third game, all of the leagues they've been trying to go more man-to-man and with less of a sort of a retreat into the blanket defence. In the first 2 or 3 games they were off colour, like Dublin, they were only coming back from holiday. But then they pivoted Matty Donnelly right into full forward, and increasingly now the last couple of games, Cathal McShane up along with them. They pulled Petey Hart, who was at full forward, pulled him more out round the middle again to more an attacking, and they've now blended sort of their old sort of good compact defence and sort of breaking out of that defence, but with 2 target men, old-fashioned target men inside, and they're releasing the ball in early. The amount of kick pass and Tyrone have been doing right from the start of the league has been really, really notable whenever you compare it with how they've played over the years. So there's been a huge increase in long kick passing, and you've seen that to really excellent effect against Dublin. The issue with Dublin is most teams play at least a sweeper back there. Dublin tend not to. They tend to drop Ger and O'Sullivan quite late whenever a team is attacking, presuming that they're going to attack through the hands. But Tyrone, with the much faster attack, with the long kick passing, worked to treat, and with the 2 big men, Matty Donnelly and Cathal McShane in there, they were winning ball. Sometimes it didn't work out, but when it did work, there was scores to be had. And if it didn't work out, the ball was coming back out, but Tyrone were still largely in their defensive shape. So there was a double bonus from a Tyrone point of view.
I think the benefit of having McShane and Matty Donnelly is that they can both come deep if they need to and win their own ball deep. And so what I'm trying to get at here is that they don't just provide a single challenge. They're not just 2 big men on the edge of the square. They will travel out if they need to, but when they need to be big men on the edge of the square, they can do that. So they're kind of a multi-platform approach.
Yeah, absolutely. They are much more, really, both players. If you had a very natural forward line, both players would probably be more out around the middle of the field. But with Tyrone have lots of runners through that middle third. They have a couple of good new midfielders that they're discovering, and that has released options for Mickey to maybe move them men up the field and still keep a platform in the middle. But you're absolutely right, and at times it did happen, and Dublin, nearly all teams do it now, that at times you still have to get back. You're still tracking men back, and Dublin still have threatening defenders if they're allowed to attack. So McAteer or Cathal can track back. They're well capable of covering large amounts of ground, so they can do that. But you did see them, whenever they did get back, there was a concerted effort to get up the pitch, get well ahead of the ball, so that they were that option.
Yeah, like where did this come from, do you think? What? Because Mickey's style has been Mickey's style effectively with a few iterations over the last decade and a half. This seems like quite a departure, and it felt like it kind of came in the middle of the league in some ways.
Yeah, well, I know that Tyrone have been trying to work on their forward system, and the work last year with Mark Bradley was sort of their main man inside, but that didn't really allow them this type of option. I know Stephen O'Neill is obviously the fella in there who's charged with doing a good part of the attacking work, and to be fair, there was parts of that game on Saturday evening that I just remembered how we were instructed to make the passes to Stevie, or how Stevie wanted the passes. There was some passes made completely blind where the forward hadn't made the run, but the ball was hit. Hampshey's ball was like that. There was another 1 or 2 as well where the kick pass was struck before the forward actually moved, but the forward was going to move to the D and the defenders were through. So that's always how we used to try and hit Stevie, because you just knew that was his movement. So I don't know whether it's his influence really starting to come home to bear. I would imagine it's multiple things. It's Tyrone realising that last year's style didn't work, and so trying to force something different. It's the freedom of now having Matty and Cathal in there to be able to have them options, and then the boys going with that more attacking thing and getting the ball into the forwards much faster. Like the joke was, I suppose, you couldn't really work on a forward line whenever you had only one forward up, so that has been tweaked. Earlier on in the league they did try to keep 3 or 4 up, and it still wasn't really working, but now with the 2 big men as sort of a pivot, and they're not always there. Sometimes that's Petey Hart, sometimes there's just one on them, but there's usually always an option in there of a true ball winner in the full forward line. But right across the pitch you had big performances from Tyrone. I thought Tyrone's defence was outstanding against Dublin. A lot of focus has been on that attacking play, but Tyrone's defence, instead of having the blanket defence, they were largely man-to-man, and they were excellent. You had Ben McDonald of Moan Club Earl Kieran. He was largely picking up Kieran Kilkenny. This is Ben's only his third start for Tyrone, and yet he was picking up Kieran Kilkenny. Done a great job on him. You had Brian Kennedy, again, new in this year. He was picking up Fenton and done a great job on him. Now, yes, them Dublin players were off colour, but still, for them young Tyrone players to come in and do essentially man-to-man jobs, not a blanket defence job, but man-to-man jobs, I think that's hugely encouraging. As much as the forward play is encouraging, Tyrone were hugely solid in defence. Tyrone missed quite a bit up front, with quite a few attacks that didn't work out. It was because they were so solid defensively. Now, Dublin missed a right bit too, in fairness, but because Tyrone were very, very good defensively, that was still the foundation to allow the forward play to flourish.
Just a last bit about this, the midfield. Obviously, you know exactly what Mickey wants from midfielders. What has the discovery of the new midfielders, how has that allowed them to push Matty forward? What's he looking for from his midfielders in the system?
He's looking for boys that can compete in the air. So I suppose the modern midfielder is very, very different from previously, where the main job was to be a fetcher of ball or a creating of good break ball that you could win it and not get dominated in the middle against other midfielders. Now it's so much more of a running game. So the midfielders that Mickey would be looking is they would really have to be switched on. At times they can be very quiet, you mightn't spot them, but they're the ones that have to be, I would imagine, seeing the danger, spotting the danger. They're your utility players. They would have a freedom that if they see an opportunity to attack, but they're also the ones that if defenders have bombed forward, they're the ones that have to be looking their head on the pivot the whole time to look for the gaps, look for the dangers, get talking and do whatever needs to be done. So they have to sacrifice themselves for the team, add a wee bit into attack if needs be, but they have to sacrifice for the team. You've seen it none better than Colin Cadden over the past few years, where he always looks for the danger. He looks where he's needed from a team point of view to keep the team solid and allow maybe the other players the freedom to bomb if they see the chances, because they know they're always covered.
From what you've seen in the league so far this year, and I guess over the last 12 months as well, and do you think that is the most important characteristic of a modern day midfielder, the awareness, the ability to read the game, and ultimately an ability to man mark?
Yeah, you have to be able to be that sort of the traditional centre half back. You have to, from a midfield point of view, you have to be both an ability. Usually as a midfielder, if you were lining up for a kick out, you were the main man and you were the dominant one. You could decide where you ran and everybody else had to sort of either create space for you or that. Midfielders now are part of a whole system where they might have to run to create space for somebody else. You have to be a player with huge awareness, whereas the midfielders of old, they were the totem poles the teams were built around, and they were the generals in the midfield along with, say, the centre half back, and they sort of were very dominant figures. The midfielders now tend to be just all action. They will be attacking, they'll be defending, they'll be filling in gaps, but they're no longer the real totem poles as such in a team that a team is built around. So the modern midfielder, the big fetches, is such a tiny part of the game that old style midfield probably isn't valid or certainly important anymore. You have to have a really good head on your shoulders, and you're just one chink in the team in the chain, rather than maybe a very focal point where the midfielders of old were.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of idea, because you look at Aidan O'Shea's performance on Saturday night, brilliant around the middle of the park. Has he now got that ability to read a game better than he used to?
Well, again, he's played just about everywhere from full back to full forward. So again, he's going to be acutely aware. Now, Aidan O'Shea is a different. He's a unique player. Aidan O'Shea, when he walks into the dressing room, is a different player. He just attracts attention, and he is just a very, very charismatic player, same as Michael Murphy from Galway. So some players just have that anyway, and they are key leading players within a team, and teams will always rally around them. That's the way. Now, wherever they're positioned, if they're midfielder, they're still going to be a key man for the team. But in Mayo, no less than anywhere else, you need to be that link where you're covering and filling in. If you want your defenders to attack properly as a midfielder, you're going to have to watch and always judge, are you needed up there? With being Aidan O'Shea, he is needed. He is going to have to join, so other boys will be covering for him. So I'd imagine it's different for the likes of Aidan O'Shea than it is for Brian Kennedy of Tyrone. Interestingly, thinking of that key man analogy, I've always sort of said Dublin's strength in terms of their attacking play is that in terms of their six forwards, they're not reliant on a real star man. It's everybody is so good in there that everybody's their own star man and everybody's worth a watching. But it was interesting on Saturday night for the first time, you could see the fact that they were missing, whenever the team was misfiring, the fact that they were missing that go-to player, that player with something different, that player who was their on-field leader. They were missing that star to sort of go to. Whenever the team was struggling, you get your star of the ball and they'll work something, you know it's safe with them. And so you just look at who they're missing and you sort of think again, Jim Gavin is now in a situation he would never have thought he would be in. So from a Tyrone point of view, you were saying at the start that we're delighted with the win, absolutely. Have we woken the beast? Possibly. Will Jim Gavin start looking at his options that are playing club football in Dublin at the minute? He very likely will. But
do you mean Diarmuid Connolly?
Yeah, so,
are you talking Diarmuid Connolly?
Pardon?
Are you talking about Diarmuid Connolly?
Yeah, I think the likes of Connolly, possibly the likes of Rory O'Carroll, though I think he's further away from the mix. But I just thought that Dublin forward line on Sunday, and funny, a good friend of mine, Stevie Quinn, mentioned to me, they were missing that go-to player. Whenever the rest of them were struggling, you just love to have that go-to player that you just know he's got something else and that really, really isn't capable of being man-marked. And Diarmuid Connolly is certainly a very obvious candidate for that type of role.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And one last thing, it seems like the team are really well set up for next season. And I don't want to blah 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 away this year, but if the rule changes come in the way they are for the league, or at least if the advanced mark does, then all of a sudden having those two big lads in the full forward line who can fetch ball anywhere between the goal line and the 40 is going to be a massive godsend to a team like Tyrone, because all of a sudden they can do anything to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I'd pull away from that, and that people are saying, it's the forward marks making these people kick in the long ball. Any player that has played any football over the past 40 years will know that one of the best tactics in Gaelic football is always kick it into your full forward line, especially if you have ball winners there. That was before any forward mark was there, if you know what I mean. So all them passes, whether the forward mark is used or not, are still hugely effective, because if that ball's won in there, you've in rugby parlance, you've got great field position. So the forward mark, I still don't like whenever these great attacks, great kick pass, great fetch, and then the player stops for a free kick at goals. I still don't like that, to be honest. But I still think that the long forward kick passing is going to be the main way to, by the looks of it, that you can attack Dublin. Of course, the obvious tactical move to go against that is to start bringing back sweepers. And that sort of is almost bringing us back to full circle. So if this is a new sort of tactical move that the game's going in, it is an old tactical move where sweepers came from. So we'll see how teams adapt it over the summer, but it's certainly at least great to see that Dublin can be shook. Yeah, and great stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. All right. And McGinley giving us some brilliant insights as ever on the role of the midfielder, and like the whole country is now talking about it officially. Dublin needs Diarmuid Connolly. Put the bat signal up, get Connolly back. They got Bernard Brogan back this weekend, I think. I mean, that's not a bad start, is it? Not a bad start. When you talk about needing a focal point inside, like Dublin are going to be totally fine. Like, and when I say totally fine, I mean they could still saunter to an All-Ireland win. There's no way they're sauntering to an All-Ireland win this year. Surely at this point. Surely there's no way. They could say, like, I'm nowhere near as convinced as I was last year that they would. It was obvious this time last year that everything, like, it was obvious that they were so far ahead. This time last year, really? Yeah, we knew that, like, that was. I'm not sure. I think it became apparent later in the year for sure, but I don't know, was it actually apparent in the league when they actually got beaten by Monaghan, wasn't it? And there was a couple of hiccups here and there, and there was a draw with Galway as well, if I recall. And still, there was still a sense that this was the team that was at the absolute peak of its powers, and there just isn't that at the moment. No, it does seem that perhaps they're at the plateau, or they have plateaued. They're coming down off a plateau. Now it's like
it's a height that we haven't seen since the great Kerry team. Maybe that's her own team, but it's amazing that there's just that little bit that has everybody excited about the football championship all of a sudden.
Yeah,
for 3 weeks.
Like, hope is important, and hope for the teams themselves is important as well. That the confidence that you may have to actually go and take Dublin on in more direct football is a great thing. Has that come as a result of the rules and the changes? Potentially. Will it still be there in the championship time? Maybe not, but I don't see why a team like Mayo, for example, wouldn't be able to bring the same level of confidence that they can beat Dublin this summer. And I say that as if they've been able to regularly beat them in the past or something like that. They haven't. They've just come close.
So here's the headline on Double Page Spread. Deegan, if I was Jim, I'd bring Rory back. So, 3-time All-Ireland winner could be answered to Dublin's vulnerability to direct aerial threat. It's like, if you were to script what has happened over the last couple of weeks, Rory O'Carroll, the news breaks that he's back in Ireland. A little bit of footage emerges from a club game. He looks amazing. His skill set is high fielding. All of a sudden, Dublin look vulnerable to high fielding. It gets written again and again and again, and then it's like, now's the time. Just make the phone calls. Put them back in the squad. If they make the team, they make the team. If they don't, they're going to drive standards. They're not going to let standards. People aren't going to be going, oh, you're bringing this guy back. I mean, he's no good. They're not going to be doing that about either of the two players who we're talking about here.
No, I don't think so. I think that, as you said, the exact sort of skills that he brings to the fold is the exact reason why he should be brought back in. And I just don't see why there's any argument against the idea that he should just have a go and give him a run in training and just see how he's moving, see if he can get up to a level of fitness. And if he can't, and if Jim Gavin says, well, if you're like through no fault of your own, if you're not able to get back up to a level of conditioning after being away for a few years, then you're going to leave. I think that's fair enough. I think, Rory O'Carroll has to give something as well, and that is the whole dedication to the cause. And if he's willing to give that and get himself up to that level, then
you've got to take that for granted. And if that's not there, fair enough. If he doesn't want this, fair enough. Like, that's everybody's decision. This is a hobby after all. So
his decision to leave was kind of more based on the appeal of New Zealand rather than trying to get away and clear his head from Gaelic football, it seemed. So I'd imagine there'd still be a bit of enthusiasm on his part. I'm sure there'll be a lot of enthusiasm on the part of the Dublin fans, because a big, long, high ball into the full forward line once ended 5 in a row. I wonder could it do so again this year.
How do you feel about Kerry after the weekend?
Not great, obviously. They were poor. Still haven't scored more than one goal in the entirety of the league. I don't have the Division 4 table in front of me, but certainly the top 3 divisions, Kerry are the only team that have scored just one goal. Everybody else, they've scored the least amount of goals of anybody in the top 3 divisions. So
how many games have they won?
They've won 5 games.
Yeah, so it's all right.
They've lost one.
It's like saying Wales only scored 1 try at the weekend. It's like, they hammered us.
Yeah. I don't know. They didn't get bullied off the park, though, did they, Wales? I mean, there is great situational football that we've seen from Kerry. There are people who kind of looked at the Dublin win as a situation where Dublin were coming into it undercooked. We're also using the point that Kerry were going into that game very well cooked and have been training for months and months at that point. So there may be just a situation that the league table we're looking at is just a reflection of the hard early work that Peter Keane has done, and that a strong league campaign is important to Kerry this year, because this year as a whole is a dry run for Peter Keane. And I think that is the way we looked at this back in December. It's the way we looked at it back in November when he was appointed. Just because they've won 5 games doesn't mean we have to reevaluate that. Of course, if they can go close, it's a bonus. But really, 2020 is the year.
You can't be saying that, though. You can't.
Why not?
Because that's not how life works. What if this is the team? What if this is the year that everybody's fit and plays, and next year somebody goes away? Like, this year is the year.
I will contend that. I did say that after the Dublin game, that if David Clifford gets back to the level he played at last year, which, let's face it, is an if. Like, we were taking it for granted that as soon as David Clifford's fully fit, he's suddenly David Clifford last year.
Well, he's going to be. He did that kicking competition. He's pretty good. It's fine.
He's going to be looked at a lot closer. Who knows if he'll get back to that level? And the other thing I said is, if James O'Donoghue manages to get back to his previous level, which some people would say is nigh on impossible, that's what I said.
He was footballer of the year, so if he gets back to footballer of the year, that's the level. That's very high.
Okay, so somewhere close to that. Let's even settle for like 2013 direction here, which again is still an insanely high bar. Then they have a chance. I didn't say they would win in All-Ireland, and they're 2 big ifs.
I just think that you can't write off a year and say it's your first year. Like, Mickey Hart won All-Ireland his first year, Pat O'Shea won All-Ireland his first year, Jack won All-Ireland his first year, a bunch of managers do it in their first year with a group who is the first time that they get the group, and it's like, okay, so
bit different. You can't really compare the current squad to the squads that Pat O'Shea and Jack O'Connor had at their disposal.
Oh, I mean, maybe we can. Maybe in time, that minor team, the 5 in a row minor team that we hear so much about, given that they did the 5 in a row, maybe it turns out that was festooned with some of the greatest footballers of all time, and this is a new dynasty emerging. But I just think that you can't write off a whole year and say, it's grand. There's a 5 in a row that our main rivals are doing over there, but we're okay. We're not really that interested in this year. There's no pressure, lads.
That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm also saying that from my own perspective, I'm not saying at all that that's what Peter Keenan is saying. I'm sure he has designs on winning in All-Irelands and how they might go about that. Whether or not that's his expectation is a different thing. Is it my expectation? Absolutely not. Is there a chance that Kerry get knocked out of the Super 8s again this year? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there is. But why is it?
I'm just pointing out the fact that they've been built up as this team that is absolutely best placed to take down Dublin. I'm not sure if the evidence on Saturday would actually suggest that. I think they were on the other side of the park.
But like not far away. It's just it's a league game against a very good Mayo side who needed to win in a game that they didn't need to win.
Yeah, it's true. We'll see in the league final. It would take a mathematical fluke at this point. They potentially need to lose heavily in Roscommon at the weekend for them to not make the league final. So the league final will be telling, but like this team is still not the finished article. If this team wins in All Ireland without being the finished article, which is this year, it's an insane achievement. Then you're talking kind of like flip side domination here potentially.
Here is another clip from Jason McAteer. He was in studio yesterday to promote the charity match taking place for the Sean Cox fundraiser. The 12th of April in the Aviva Stadium. It's an Irish Legends 11 against the Liverpool Legends 11. You can buy tickets now over at ticketmaster.ie, or you can head over to offtheball.com for more on Jason's hour in studio with the lads yesterday. Here he is talking about his relationship with Mick McCarthy.
My relationship with Mick is, I'm very close to Mick. He's more of an uncle to me.
Right.
He's more of a, me and him hit it off straight away. We knew where each other stood. He knew what he needed from me. I knew what he needed for me to give back. Instances like I got dropped, Derby, Liverpool 11, and I was devastated. Joined up with the squad on the Sunday.
Not in the mood.
Yeah, absolutely devastated, thinking I was never going to play for Liverpool again. I'm going to get sold. I wanted to play in the Derby, gutted. When am I going to get back in the team? How am I going to play for Ireland when I'm not playing club level? Went there, Sunday night, meal time. I stayed in my room and ordered room service. Bang on the door, open the door thinking it's the room service, and it's Mick. He walked in, he gave me the biggest talking to, sat me down on the bed, he was in my face. He grabbed me, threw me out the door and went, get up there and sit with the lads and have a meal with the lads, and you start mixing with the lads. My mood changed. I was like, whoa, like my mood changed. Training on the Monday, trained really well. Played on the Wednesday, played well. He was straight on the phone to me on the Thursday. You get back to Liverpool now and you train hard and you get back in that team.
Great.
I got back in the team, and I went through some personal stuff as well, through a relationship. I sadly went through some deaths as well that happened, and he was first on the phone.
Right.
He'd come and see me. He's a very, very good man manager.
That's a ringing endorsement for Big Mick from Jason McAteer. The full goodness is over on offtheball.com. You can get the full hour-long Jason McAteer special. And a reminder, head over to ticketmaster.ie to get tickets for the Sean Cox fundraiser. It takes place on the 12th of April in the Aviva Stadium. They want to fill that thing, so a big push on at the moment to try and get everybody to buy tickets now. It's the Irish Legends 11 against the Liverpool Legends 11. So, how are you?
I'm good, Ger. How are you?
What's the crack?
Not much.
Busy day?
Busy day in the world of sport. It always is. International week, surprisingly busy. We start with the news that the FAI say they will respond to Sport Ireland at the earliest opportunity. After being asked for more information on a 2017 loan, Sport Ireland are seeking what they call urgent clarification from the association after they admitted to borrowing €100,000 from its chief executive, John Delaney. The FAI claimed the deal was in the best interest of Irish football after they encountered a short-term cash flow issue. Sport Ireland say they were never made aware of any financial problems. Republic of Ireland manager Mick McCarthy has lost another striker before the Euro 2020 qualifiers commence. Shane Long has been ruled out of both games with Gibraltar and Georgia with a groin injury. It's a big setback for McCarthy, who's already planning without Ronan Curtis, as well as midfielders Callum O'Dowd and Alan Brown. Millwall striker Aidan O'Brien has been called in as a replacement. David McGoldrick looks in pole position to start this week. McCarthy knows the 31-year-old has a lot to offer.
Yeah, David's a very good player, very good technical player. He's not had the best of times, I don't think, here. I think he was slightly blighted by injury because he had a few hamstring problems and he missed a few camps. He's had a good season this year, and to be fair to Chris, I think he rotates his strikers except Billy Sharp because he's been the best of them. He's had a really good season, so hopefully we'll see the best of him as well with Ireland.
Paris Saint-Germain have condemned what they call Patrice Evra's deeply shocking comments. The offending remarks came after his former club Manchester United's Champions League victory over the French side. Evra was in the stands alongside current United midfielder Paul Pogba when the Premier League team overturned a 2-goal first-leg deficit. Footage posted on social media showed Evra celebrating with an expletive-laden rant that contained a homophobic slur. In a statement, the club said the remarks were deeply shocking within the club, which is particularly committed to the values of respect and openness to others. The fight against homophobia is at the heart of PSG's action. England defender Danny Rose says fellow players were over the moon when Raheem Sterling highlighted the way media covers black footballers. The Man City player was the subject of alleged racist abuse last December in a game against Chelsea. He claimed newspapers were helping to fuel racism by the way in which they portrayed young black footballers compared to how they cover young white players. Rose says Sterling started a very important conversation.
It was just sad, really, but he's 100% spot on with what he said when he put the post up about the media. We was all over the moon with that because we all agree, and fair play to Raheem. One of few positive things about social media now is that you've got a voice and you can influence people, and Raheem's used his platform, and now it's not just the lads now in the dressing room who have opened their eyes to how the media was targeting Raheem. The general public have now seen it. He said it doesn't affect Raheem in any way, and which we're all grateful for, because any other player would, you don't know how somebody would take that, and especially when half the things are printed are not even true. Fair play to Raheem, and we all hope in the future it changes.
Declan Rice says he wants to forget about his Republic of Ireland career and move on. The West Ham midfielder poised to get his first England cap in the upcoming Euro 2020 qualifiers against the Czech Republic and Montenegro. He's given his first interview since defecting and has spoken about the pride and joy that it's brought him. It sounds remarkably like his first interview as an Ireland player. It's left Ireland fans wondering exactly who are you?
If you had a choice, Ireland or England? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Ireland.
To get the call from Martin to say that I'm going to come in for 3 days and train, it's just a great experience to be here with the lads. My family are so proud. I just wish my nan and granddad could be here to see it because they are from Cork, and obviously this training camp is in Cork, so it would have been lovely, but unfortunately they're not here.
What is that feeling like?
Yeah, you can't describe it, to be honest. Just a straight smile.
Yeah,
you just couldn't believe it. It's everything you've wanted to work for as a kid, and it's come true. So yeah, the call-up's probably one of the best feelings you're ever going to feel. I've obviously played there in the youth setups, but I had to make a decision that that was best for me. As you can hear, I am English. I am from England. And it was really good playing for Ireland. Now I'm just looking forward to the future and pulling on the England shirt, and I just think I've just got to look forward now and forget about the past. You've always got to play well when you put on the Irish shirt, because you never know, there's people that want to take that jersey off you. So every time you play, you've just got to give it your all.
As you can hear, I wonder what he means by that. Does he mean the bursting pride for England that he says with every word? Does he mean the sort of football greatness that we can hear in every verb? What does he mean by, as you can hear, I'm English? It's nothing to do with his accent, I wonder, is it?
The whole thing is just bizarre. I defended Declan Rice a lot last week because I genuinely felt that the kid was conflicted and had a really tough decision to make. The more he talks, the more he tweets. Like, he's not 15. He should know better than to say this stuff after how strongly he came on with Ireland with the green hearts and the tricolours and the come on you boys in green shit. It's just really, really hard to not see him as a complete fraud and a disingenuous liar.
I'm not sure if I go that far.
Well,
I'm not sure if
prove me wrong, Owen. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, go on. It's hard to. How do you like? What do you?
It's
as you can hear. I mean, It's early
like
in the
only
morning.
one of them can be genuine. He said,
Screw you, Declan Rice.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely disingenuous. Definitely disingenuous.
It's fraudulent. He's misled everyone as to intentions.
As you can hear, bit.
Yeah,
his accent has not changed. And also, so last week, or whenever it was, there was the carefully scripted statement which talked about the issues of dual nationality, and then you also had Southgate talking about dual nationality in quite a nuanced way, not particularly nuanced for an England head coach. But Rice hasn't changed. He still sounds the same as he did when he had that dual nationality, and now, as you can hear, I'm English. It's like, fair enough, if that's your view, it turns out you don't have a nuanced view of dual nationality. You were just using Ireland as a flag of convenience. Now, we were also just using him as a flag of convenience to try and get a better footballer into our setup. So, there will be other interlopers who we need to lie down with, but, you know.
Is there a chance he's incredibly naive about it all?
Getting fleas. Is there a chance he's incredibly naive? I mean, yeah, there's a chance he's not particularly bright, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you get away with saying shit like, as you can hear.
Well,
he's not young enough to be this stupid.
The as you can hear, I'm English line really grates at me.
Age isn't a barrier to stupidity.
Like, I used to have a little English accent myself, and I was always very much Irish, so. As you can hear, I'm English. That's a dick move, Declan Rice. I'm sorry, it's a dick move, but maybe I'm not giving him the credit his intelligence deserves, but I do think there's a huge air of naivety about...
but they can't all be naive. Like, he has to agree to sit down and say this. He doesn't have to put out these tweets about England with these stupid lion emojis.
I think it was actually the other way around, that the patriotic Irishness that he kind of... that was glowing from him might have been the forced part. And I think clearly it was the forced part.
I don't mind about the lion emojis, and I don't mind about him being excited about playing for England. That's all totally fine. But it's the bit about, like... So, in one fell swoop, he is disallowing everybody who ever played for Ireland with an English accent, including our current manager, including our colleagues, Kevin Kilban and Gary Breen, and a bunch of other players, some of whom, not that group, some others of whom may have declared for Ireland just to play international football, but they didn't. That was their cultural identity. That was what defined them as people, and it's very important to them. The fact that they speak with an English accent is largely irrelevant.
Completely. The aspersions it casts on other players is really unfair, and it's he didn't say that by accident. I mean, he would have thought about that interview. He would have crafted what he wanted to say. He would have had an idea that this was going to be a question that was discussed, and this would be a way of somewhat clearing the air. And he chose very carefully to say, as you can hear, I'm from England, listen to my accent. And then they put it out after no doubt vetting it. I just find it really, really hard to swallow, particularly when you listen back to his interview about his grandparents in Cork and what it meant to them, and the interview in the Times at the start of the year where he spoke about, the caps have pride of place, my dad's hung up the caps and the jerseys. There's something really, really off about them here.
A good point by Tommy here, actually. I think everybody knows my situation with the Republic of Ireland. I played there in the youth setup, but I had to make a decision that was best for me. He played there in the youth setup and 3 times in the senior setup, which he just casually is like, no, I never played at senior international. What senior international football? What caps? They don't count. I didn't play for Ireland. Like, well, you did. This is the repeat a lie enough, it becomes the truth.
It's just utter contempt for his entire Ireland experience, which is more sizable than the 3 caps. It's the 2 Underage Player of the Year's awards. The cap he's won at all the various underage levels.
The Young Player of the Year.
I've completely changed my take on Declan Rice.
All of that stuff, I don't really, the caps, whatever, that's the rules, but it's the bit where it's like, my experience was bullshit, and so therefore everybody else who has an English accent is English. It's exactly the type of crappy nonsense that he would have suffered abuse for. I'm sure that he was getting abuse from players on the pitch going, oh, look at you with your English accent playing for Ireland, because that's the type of shit the players say. And like, can't be doing that, can't be having that, no thanks.
No, I completely agree with that. I just wonder, are we now blinded by fury for that line? Because I really think that's a stupid thing to say, and really ill thought out. Are we now kind of, is our view on what Declan Rice has done initially here, as in betraying us, if you want to go that far, being coloured by the fact that he says, I've got an English accent, therefore I'm English? I just think that's a really dislikable thing to say. So therefore, we now dislike Declan Rice quite a bit, and therefore his initial decision, we were starting to change our opinions on that.
No, I mean,
I think they're two separate things.
For me, they are. Like, and you obviously are happy now to bundle it all together and throw it against the wall and go, screw yeah.
Well,
are you angry?
It's when you talk about it being nuanced. Like, I wanted to understand the complexity of being dual national. I didn't have it. My parents are Irish. My heritage is Irish, so I don't understand the confusion that would sit with those players. So I wanted to be open-minded enough to get my head around that this would be very, very difficult for someone. But the more it's gone on and the more he's talked, he's removed all doubt that he's not dual nationality, that he took the Irish caps because he wanted to further his career and have an international career, because he didn't think he was good enough to have one for the country he was born in and the country he identified as being from.
Better to be thought of an idiot than to open your mouth and remove all doubt, I believe is the phrase that we're looking for here.
That's the one. As one Englishman turns his back on Ireland, another Englishman is talking about becoming an Irish citizen. Stuart Lancaster says extending his stay at Leinster was a no-brainer. The 49-year-old has signed a 2-year contract with the province's senior coach. His time as Leinster has helped him rebuild his reputation after England's disastrous pool exit at the Rugby World Cup in 2015, and he's hoping to bring even more success to the reigning European champions.
It's quite an easy decision to make, really, and obviously with Leo staying as well, it means that we can continue to work together and hopefully build on what we've achieved so far. When I first arrived, I could see the potential from before I arrived, because obviously when the call came from Leo, the first thing you do is assess the squad, assess the current situation. We just lost against Cullen in a Pro 14 final, but I saw more than enough in the team to believe that success could be built. I mean, when you do the maths, and with another couple of years, 5 years is quite a long time actually. I coached England for 4 years, and in my mind, obviously I wanted to do it for 8, but it didn't happen that way. So 5 years, I guess when you look back, it looks like a long time, but in coaching terms, I still feel there's an awful lot we can do to improve. It probably qualifies me for an Irish passport, doesn't it? In 5 years' time, could be officially Irish.
Or takes your Lancaster as an Irish passport
totally,
holder.
It's a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
Give my house down in Cove.
You keep Declan Rice.
Finally, to golf from me, Padraig Harrington will take part in this year's Irish Open. The 3-time major winner and the 2020 Ryder Cup Team Europe captain hasn't played since November due to a wrist injury. The Dubliner, though, has been added to the tournament to his tour schedule. Harrington's involvement a big boost for the event following the loss of their top draw. Rory McIlroy, the former tournament host, will skip this year's event to focus on preparing for the Open Championship.
What do you think of where's McIlroy's current position in the hierarchy of Irish, just a little bit like suddenly Declan Rice's, or is it like, we love Rory, we always loved Rory because he's a winner?
I think he's done a lot for Irish golf. I think he's done a lot for the Irish Open. I was surprised by the amount of stick he got for
not
playing this 1 year, considering that he
saved it personally, single-handedly.
Single-handedly saved it with the Rory Foundation and made it a really, really appealing tournament for players to come and play in. So I don't know why he doesn't get any credit. Like I think it might be that Northern thing, the fact that there's still some people who have issues with him identifying as an Irishman and a Northern Irishman.
We hate the Nordies in the South, is what you're saying.
That is the blazing hot take that I'm providing today.
I mean, certainly, how do you feel about Tyrone there, Owen?
Tyrone? What do you mean, how do I feel about Tyrone? Lovely place. Oh my, great place for a match. Great footballing people. Love Tyrone. I think...
You sound like Jim Gavin. I can't think of anything to say, so I'll just say a load of random nonsense and hope someone forgets the question.
Don't want to insult anybody in Tyrone. Second best team of the last decade and all that. Rory McIlroy, he hasn't done an interview where he says, as you can hear, I'm Northern Irish.
Well, I mean,
to be fair, Rory McIlroy...
It's pretty clear he is Northern Irish / Californian.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's Floridian.
Florida. He's been quite... To be fair, okay, if you had the opportunity, if you were as talented as Rory McIlroy and you had the opportunity to just say, hey, do you want to, uproot and just live here in Florida or California or wherever you want? And
are people angry about that?
No, but the idea, is that not what you're saying?
But that he lives in Florida, people are pissed off with him.
He doesn't
get any credit for being like the best Irish sports person.
Oh, sorry, I completely misunderstood what you were trying to say there. The people are annoyed with him, as Darren says, because
just like the Olympics. No one gives a shit about golf in the Olympics. No one gives a shit about golf in the Olympics.
I also don't think anybody of note has really come out and actually slammed him for the Irish Open decision. I think most people of a reasonable mind would understand the decision, that if he really, really wants to win the Open this year and he sees that the Irish Open is an inconvenience to that end, then fair enough, skip it. You've done enough for the competition. He
just doesn't have a particularly good rep in Ireland. It seems odd that like he does so much for Irish sport and even like I think Irish life. I remember a couple of years ago when he was back, he has an apartment somewhere around the Docklands, so he spent a decent chunk of time in Dublin when he's back in Ireland. And I remember it was around Christmas, so there was a couple of stories about him, Rory out in the town, Rory having drinks, newly single Rory, all this crap. But a neighbour of mine used to work in the Spar on Temple Street. And Rory McIlroy had been in Temple Street for like an entire day in the build-up to the Christmas and had gone to the Spar twice to get sweets, to go back and bring it to Temple Street. But the papers that week were all about him going and having his pints and enjoying his time out and newly single and all this. But no one seemed to have any interest in him just being a decent bloke for no credit.
I bet he got chicken fillet rolls and everything. And if he did that, then everybody down here would love him.
Yeah, I would definitely love him if he brought me some sweets.
You need to find that out off your mate. What did he get at the deli counter?
What did he get at the deli counter? I'll ask.
Darn good stuff. So that is you up to speed on everything that's going on in the world today. No doubt that Declan Rice interview is going to take off a little bit. That clip is getting memed as we speak on social media. You can head over to offtheball.com. We'll have more details and coverage of that and all the rest of the breaking stories today as news happens. Owen caught up with Dr. Brian Moore last week. He's the founder and CEO of Orreco, founded in Ireland in 2010 by the sports scientist Dr. Brian Moore and haematologist Dr. Andrew Hodgson. Orreco's team includes 16 PhDs who've worked with 35 Olympic medalists since the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney and published more than 300 peer-reviewed scientific papers. We learned a little bit more about how they're making waves in the world of sport. Have a look.
All right, so you may have heard of Orreco. It's a Sligo startup which has been making pretty big waves all around the world in the area of bioanalytics as well as a number of other areas. And they've been working with teams such as the Dallas Mavericks, Newcastle United and many, many more besides. And also as well, of course, with a couple of individuals such as Padraig Harrington and Sonia O'Sullivan in the past. And I'm delighted to say that their CEO and co-founder, Dr. Brian Moore, joins me on the line live from Los Angeles. Good morning to you, Brian, or good night, I should say. How are things?
Good morning, Owen.
So I say there you're making waves, which probably suggests to people that this is a new startup, which isn't really the case at all. Could you briefly tell us a little bit about the background of Orreco and what you've been working on over the past, I guess, couple of decades?
Of course. So I suppose in terms of the recent progress, it's almost like a 10-year overnight success. In the bigger picture, I've been working on this area for about 20 years and started my work with Sonia back in the day. And it's just evolved year on year as we advance the science and assemble a world-class team and then start deploying what we do around the world. So it's been a phenomenal, I suppose, 2 decades. And that's why a late night here after an early start, I definitely need to get the moisturiser going on. You've obviously got that done in the studio.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. It's a lot of work that you do is in the area of blood samples, and I mentioned a couple of teams at the start, but ultimately you talk about working with Sonia O'Sullivan, I think in the lead up to the Sydney Games in 2000. What were you doing with her at that point, and how has the science moved on in the year 2019?
Really, I mean, it was such an honour to work with Sonia. I was completing my, I was kind of starting my PhD under Professor Craig Sharp in Brunel in London, and we had just a simple idea: was could we use advanced blood testing to kind of pick up iron deficiencies, maybe 10 weeks to 12 weeks before they actually manifest itself, which is a big deal for an endurance runner. And I suppose it's funny when I look back now, I still get goosebumps when I think of Sonia in Homebush racing down the home stretch and trying to chase down Szabo. But really, I suppose Sonia was so far ahead of her time. There's often elements that we delivered and did with her back in the day, and her coach Alan Story, that maybe that athletes still haven't caught up with. She was so far ahead of the game.
What sort of things are we talking about?
Really, it was we got an understanding of how the numbers were shifting across her training phases, picking up early signs of an iron deficiency, like I said, using the retic values, and also interpreting those numbers in the context of her training. So, for example, we weren't necessarily looking at normal reference ranges, which would be like comparing your a blood test result to the general public or someone sitting in the stands. We were working out her individual range and seeing how the numbers changed as she went through the different phases of the year. And we did manage to pick up, early signs of when she was fatigued, and then use that. It was very early. We were still trying to figure this out. But could we pick up signs in the blood test that maybe she needed a bit more rest or was pushing too hard? And Sonia's MO was always to push hard, so it was using the numbers to help her to optimise her performance.
And that is the key thing, picking up early signs of fatigue, and it is one of the reasons why your science could be so pivotal to the future of sports science, the fact that you can identify injuries before they get to crisis point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating whole space, and to be honest, I would say in terms of trying to predict injuries, I would argue is a fool's errand. Really, it's so complex, it's so multifactorial. However, there are definitely, what we can do is reduce the risk of it happening. But to do that, you need the context, and I suppose with the explosion of data now that's available in professional sport, but also to us all with our Fitbits and our Apple Watches and bedded sleep monitors and our Garmins. It's how can you make sense of all that data? And that's the kind of key question, really.
Yeah, and that is your job. I guess there was a New York Times piece written about your work, specifically with the Dallas Mavericks and the kind of impact that may have on the league as a whole and the NBA and on sport as a whole. So when it comes to what you're doing right now with the likes of the Dallas Mavericks, you mentioned working with Sonia and measuring the likes of iron deficiencies. How much more data are you collecting now, and what data are you collecting now for the athletes?
Yeah, it's completely changed, Owen, in terms of the amount of information that's available to us. So we're using... for example, so we'll use the biomarkers. When we started with Sonia, it was a full-on venous sample that you'd take, and you could do it maybe once a month, realistically, and it was sporadic. Now we've developed a point-of-care test that's a little pinprick that your listeners or viewers might be familiar with almost like a diabetic test. So it's a little drop of blood, and within 4 minutes we can get a readiness state for that athlete, which is like a check engine light on your car. And then, if you're seeing that the athlete isn't adapting to the load, then you can run the full diagnostic, like taking the car to the garage. So you've got that on the biomarker side. But what's fascinating now is when you map that against the GPS data that, you'll see with the players will have their accelerometers between the shoulder blades. You have acceleration, deceleration data. We have jump data from testing, from performance tests. We have sleep data, so it's endless, or I suppose it's never ending. So, what the challenge is then to make sense of that data. So we have an amazing team on the analytics side, led by Professor John Newell out of NUIG, and on an insight partnership where it helps us to really make sense of all these numbers.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like you mentioned GPS data there. Is it fair to say that what you provide is sort of internal information on what the external information is actually telling you? That ultimately it's all a marriage here, that all the information needs to complement one another. It's not one single thing that'll help sports teams find out more about their athletes.
Absolutely, you nailed it. So it's really a combination of the internal load, what's going on under the hood for the athlete, married to the external data. And so with there's amazing data now available. So obviously, from an Irish perspective, you got the great work Stat Sports are doing on the GPS side, but also then Cryon Higo or TrackAb in the Premier League, or Second Spectrum in the NBA, where you're getting phenomenally rich data sets about every pass, every move, accels, decels, and then it's okay. Can we put the two together? And then to do that, you really need powerful computing and machine learning that people are becoming more and more aware of in terms of artificial intelligence. So can you find the signals in that data, and then can you translate into something useful for the athlete and the coach? Because ultimately that's our job, help the coaches make better decisions, and from an athlete perspective, prolong their careers by making sure they're in an optimal state of readiness.
Yeah, I do want to ask you specifically about the NBA and the openness to teams and players to doing this, but just on the GPS data thing, since you mentioned it, so many people involved with GAA teams will probably kind of realise the idea that the GPS data is kind of the new future for GAA teams with intercounty level. As Lee Keegan made very famous a couple of years ago, GPSs are being used on every single player at this point. I may be putting you on the spot here a little bit, Brian, but are GAA teams at intercounty level, do they have all the information to get the best out of their GPS data? Are they using companies like your own to actually get the best out of them?
I think it's right at an interesting point. So if you look at where the Premier League was over the last kind of 5-6 years, there's a broad acceptance of GPS. But now there's an understanding, particularly in the Premier League and abroad, that to be honest, just to visualize the data and look at, you're getting some interesting information around covered X cells, D cells, but now's the time to get cleverer. And so what our team have built is actually a drill planner where using AI, we can dig into that data and you can actually predict what the load will be for each individual player. So over an hour-long session, the engine will predict to within 5 yards of distance and maybe half an acceleration what that player will do. And it'll also flag what load is too low for a player, who needs more work, and some players that's too high for.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks, because ultimately you work with a load of different teams, and naturally some of them don't want to actually tell us that they're working with Orreco, but the Dallas Mavericks have gone on the record and said that they are working with you. How open were they to the prospect of working with Orreco? Because obviously we know with their owner, Mark Cuban, I don't want to call him an eccentric, but he's certainly more open to new ideas than most people are.
Yeah, I suppose he's an entrepreneur who's networked in the 4 billion mark or in around there, and he comes from a tech background, and I think team owners are more and more coming from that background, like Steve Ballmer from the Clippers, ex-Microsoft. So I actually sent a cold email to him, and I did take a day to draft it, but when I pressed send, he came back within 40 minutes, which kind of shocked me, and a man with the amount of business interest that he has, how he can respond to email that quickly. My inbox is a disaster. So he came back very quickly and was saying, he completely got the concept, and he would say that analytics or AI, ML will eat the lunch of analytics. So it's not just, we have to go beyond aggregating data and visualizing. We need to dig into it and be able to get predictive. So he was all over that, sent his trainer, who's Casey Smith, in touch with us. And I suppose over the course of 6 weeks, decided this is what he wants to do. And we started small. We started with the biomarkers and then the point of care test with the real-time readiness, and then it just evolved now. So literally he's constantly pushing us to get better, and it's very exciting for our team.
Yeah, it certainly is. Like we've seen pictures of Luka Doncic on screen there, which is ultimately the pivotal area, I'd imagine, for any NBA owner right now, is to protect their young talent from getting injuries. And I guess this is actually a fascinating case study, because the Dallas Mavericks have gone out and acquired Kristaps Porzingis, who's gone through horrific injury troubles at the New York Knicks. Is he thinking about those specific players when he gets in touch with you? And I know we've mentioned injury prevention already, but he's thinking to himself, I can get my best players on the court more often if I utilise the right science available to me.
Absolutely. And it has to be, evidence-based. There's so much noise in this space where, a couple of white papers and a marketing exercise, what they're looking for is evidence-based. We have 300 peer-reviewed papers, and it's a fascinating, I can't speak about specifics, obviously, but if you look at Dallas, for example, you have Luka, who's just starting his career on one side, and you've got Dirk, who's 40, his 20th season in the league. And so, in the same with any team, you're looking at the team you have, how can you support them, protect them. And there's a phenomenon known as the rookie wall, whereby, typically in January, February, young athletes who come into the league are very fatigued and tend to get sick or hurt, or the performance drops off just because of the sheer load of it. So what the whole beauty of this idea is that it's all about the individual and individualizing everything that you're doing. It's not, one size fits all.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. Just a couple of things to put to you. In that New York Times article I mentioned, they have quotes from Dr. Anthony Romeo. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's the chief of orthopedics at the Roman Institute in New York, and he's a former physician for the Chicago White Sox and has worked with the Chicago Bulls as well. So he says he'd maintain a healthy level of skepticism about your work until it reveals more about the biomarkers it studies and the data being gathered. So he says at some point they're going to have to share their data in a way that it can be repeated so that we know it's true. Is that something you're planning on doing?
I think it's a very fair question, and we're scientists, so you welcome it, because there's got to be a rigor to what you do. What we will do is that we do publish. So we have, as I said, 300 peer-reviewed papers across different areas, from sports science, clinical nutrition, performance nutrition, applied statistics, and we publish selectively in those areas. We're not going to give the game away because we've been spending 10 years developing this, but for us, obviously the proof is in the pudding. I think, if you look at Newcastle last year, they reported an ESPN analyst, Ben Dinnery, a 67% reduction in soft tissue injuries. Casey Smith, 0 days lost for the Mavs, which is way below the league average, and kind of it's a glimpse into what's possible. We don't have all the answers, we don't pretend to do, but what we say is that if you collect the right information, ask the right questions, and you deploy the right kind of statistical modelling, amazing things are possible.
Yeah, for sure. Like, well, one of the quotes that also stuck out to me from Dr. Romeo here, he says that he will be cautious and that it's investigational. He says it's a very interesting area of research and they applaud the efforts that they're making, but at this time nothing supplants outstanding coaches and trainers that can do a visual analysis and understand their athletes from the traditional methods to know whether they're training too hard or too little. And I'm not sure about that, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure about the idea that actually your eye can tell you how close to fatigue a player is. Is this a stumbling block for you, Brian, that you come up against people who still believe that the naked eye is the best way and the only way to actually treat injuries or to try and foresee injuries?
I suppose, like, you know, I don't honestly believe you'll ever replace a coach, or would you want to? Because the coach understands the athlete. They see them all the time. We're not designed to come in and, I suppose, take over different roles. But our job is to present information to help make better decisions. And often what you find with the open coaches that we've been working with, like Rafa at Newcastle is an amazing example, where he has collected data on training sessions back to when he was Real Madrid under 12s. You know, he's really understands data and how to use it. And he would say, our job is to say, look, give him a preemptive warning. The article references an athlete where we flagged, you know, in the days before that their risk profile was really high, and they blew the calf, non-contact injury, no one near them. So I think, look, there's always going to be some skepticism. I think it's good to ask questions, but what we can say is that the eye will give you, maybe identify you. Coaches will see an athlete isn't making recoveries, looks flat. Sometimes you see your favourite team. You know, I think in the Irish parlance, you'll say the team is flying. You know, championship, and then they get there and they're flat, and it could be that they've overreached, it could be that they're under recovered, and it's multifactorial. Often it's what's happening away from the pitch or the training pitch rather than necessarily what's happening on the paddock.
Well, that's the key question, Brian, that every Irish sports fan will have. What can you do to make sure that the 2015 injury crisis doesn't happen for the 2019 World Cup? Yeah, well, I think for us it's really about deploying the data side, see how we can be of assistance to, and what are the coaches' questions. That's the amazing thing out of, like, Dr. Paul Catterson at Newcastle is amazing for asking, like, really pushing us. And what I love about elite sports, and you probably do too, is that it's ruthless. That if you don't add value, you're not kept around for very long. So it's a kind of testament to our team that our contracts are running 5 and 6 years, and they're, you know, if it wasn't added value, we'd be gone. So I think what's possible is now with the wealth of data, the challenge is it's often one or two individuals in an organisation that get dumped all the data, and it's up to them to figure it out. So we operate as a team within the team, and it's very exciting. Yeah, just one final thing before we let you go. Well, what happens next from a business standpoint? Are you always looking to get into new markets and speak to new teams?
Yeah, so I mean, since the New York Times article, the phone has been hopping really, which is great. And again, you know, they've identified what we can do that's different, but also where this is going to go. And so the more data you have, with the, you know, the partnership we have with Insight, then we can do spectacular things. For us, what we want to do, our ultimate goal is to make this all available to you and I, for the next, you know, when we're preparing for our own sporting events, whether that's the 5-a-side or a 10K or half marathon, and can we get high-end science and make it available to us all? So we just launched an app called Fitter Woman. I don't know if you've come across it. It's aimed for female athletes and takes into account the menstrual cycle.
Yeah, we actually did a piece on that, an off the bench piece. We can actually check that out on youtube.com/offtheball. If anybody at home wants to check out Fitter Woman a little bit more. It's exciting times, Brian. We wish you all the best, and we wish you, it's an unbelievable time for sports science, and I'm sure from your own perspective as well, it's an extremely exciting time as well. Thanks a million for staying up late and taking the call, and we wish you all the best. Dr. Brian Moore, thank you very much.
No problem. Appreciate it.